Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm David.
I'm Jonathan.
And this is Now Let's Be Honest. And we're here for a live stream.
We are.
That's what we're here for.
Indeed.
That is the reason we're here. That's the reason we're gathered here today. And
we only put out straight facts here.
Only straight facts, because it's Now Let's Be Honest, right? We just talk about facts. Well, today, just a heads up on, if you're watching this video, you probably know why we're here. This is Testimony Talks number 2. Jonathan is my second guest on this because we started off this series with myself and Brienne sharing our testimonies, and people seemed to like that, and I enjoyed sharing it, and that got my mind thinking, I think it'd be cool to have some of my friends hop on this channel and just share their stories about their walks with God. Not necessarily just their conversion experience, but just, how God's been working in their lives. And I thought that'd be really cool. Even if it doesn't get as many views, I thought it'd be kind of cool just to have my friends on here and doing that so that we just kind of have that forever. I thought it'd be kind of a unique thing. And so first off, I had my friend Hannah Hopkins on here. And Hannah, if you're here, be sure to say hello. We already have some comments here. Look at this. We got Debbie J. She says hello. Debbie, by the way, I sent you the the giveaway from last time. I sent it today. So it took me 2 weeks to send it, but nice. I sent that. Hannah Hopkins, there you go. She says, hey, y'all. Hello, Hannah. Hi. Hannah was with us last time, so that's exciting. And then Denise says, hi there. And Brienne says, hey, guys. Hello. And then you said Stephanie's supposed to be watching, so I'm going to call out Stephanie, even though she hasn't commented. So, Stephanie.
She's watching on her TV, so it's possible she's not signed in, and then it wouldn't show.
What a slacker.
So.
What a slacker.
Hello,
Barbara Scott says, hi. Hello, Barbara. How are y'all doing? Let's get some people talking in the comments. Just tell us how your day was, and we can just interact with you. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do more live streams, just so I could get to know y'all more.
Yeah.
Because, I as much as I enjoy sitting here and talking with Jonathan or talking with Hannah or talking with Brienne or just talking to myself in a dark room, I like getting to know y'all. And so be sure to just comment and let us know about stuff. Okay, yes, be checking your mail, Debbie. It should be coming in very pronto. Sorry for taking so long to send that. Yeah, but let us know how your day's going and what you've been up to today, and I'd love to interact with y'all. But Jonathan, meanwhile, what you been up to today?
Just work, the fun stuff that you tell people when they ask you how your day was, because that's what most of my days are like.
Yeah. Stephanie does say, I'm here. I'm here.
Hi,
hey,
Stephanie.
Hello, Stephanie. What do you do for a living? I know this, but inform them. What do you do?
I am a civil engineer, which is pretty broad if you know much about engineering. But I specifically do the roadway side of stuff and drainage and work with water and all that good stuff.
I'm sorry, I started falling asleep a little bit there. Okay, Zoe and Zariah say hello. Hannah's currently babysitting for our friend Zebedee, who I love his name.
Yeah.
And then his kids also, their names start with Z as well.
Yeah.
So Zebedee, she's babysitting their kids. So hello, Zoe and Zariah. I'll give them a little shout out.
Call back to the chosen.
Call back to the chosen. Yep. Today Jonathan's going to share his testimony. We're going to kind of just probably keep talking to each other a little bit to see if we can get more people hopping on here so that he's not just talking to a few people, but that's fine.
I was talking to Stephanie earlier today.
And that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Stephanie's a cool person to talk to.
And we were talking about how long this would take, and I was saying it would probably be like an hour, and then I thought I was like, no, probably not. Me and David talk forever.
Yeah, it just depends. Once we get talking, that's the issue. Sometimes with people, I'm doing most of the heavy lifting because I talk a lot, but you also talk a lot. And so this could go one of two ways. Either we'll just talk a whole lot at the beginning and we'll be very concise and we'll get it done with, or like usual, we'll just go longer than any other video. And so this could go one of two ways. And so I guess we'll just have to figure that out. But more than likely, if we have more interactions in the comments and stuff, I feel like we'll be able to keep going for a while. I know Brienne and I, when we did our first live stream, that was her and I expected to just do it for an hour. And then a bunch of people started interacting. I think we were there for 2.5. Oh, wow. It's like, whoa. I think Hannah and I's was only an hour and a half, but that's because I promised her that we'd be done an hour and a half. And so I didn't want to keep going.
Well, I am cool with it, guys. I've been in his videos. So if you've watched any of his videos, you've seen me. But ask me any questions you want.
Yeah. Stephanie says, LOL, every time I go to the kitchen to get back to cooking, y'all say my name. What can we say, Stephanie? We just like talking about you.
But we're going to put space in between every time we talk about you, just so you leave and you have to come back.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're going to do. But yeah, what did you just say a second ago?
About getting to know us.
I don't know. Man, you just said something right before the stuff. Oh no, questions. Yes. Okay, guys. So we are going to have a Q&A time at the end of this, right? Because basically how I'm structuring these testimony talks is we're going to start off by having my friend share their testimony. And then after that, we're going to go into a Q&A time where you can ask them a question. You can ask me a question. You can ask us both a question. We'll answer it. I don't care what the question's about. It can be biblical. It can be historical. It can be scientific. I can't guarantee you I'll have answers to any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Or it can just be a personal question. It can be anything. We are open books. So ask us anything and everything. I mean, there might be some stuff where we're just like not answering that, but I think that'd be kind of difficult to find. So
we're not guaranteeing answers to every single question under the sun. But also, if you have a question during my testimony, I'm fine with that too.
Okay, cool.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, if you want him to elaborate, if you're like, hey, what exact day and time did this happen at? Ask him, and we'll get him to run home and like grab all his documents and come back over here and fill
I'll check
it all
through
out.
Facebook and see like if I have pictures that were around that time or something.
Exactly. Yeah, you'll be able to date it and stuff. That'll be good. Also, look at this. I mean, it's not that significant, but I've got my Arizona green tea. This is just a lot more. It's a lot more laid back, right? We're just kind of wasting time here. We're doing what Dallas does in the live streams for the chosen. You know, just gotta talk for a while to let people know that we're streaming, tune in, and also if you interact more, that'll let YouTube know that people should come watch this. And so the more comments you leave in the live chat and the more likes you put on the little, I mean, you can only like the video once, but the more you do that.
Well, you could like it and unlike it.
I don't think that would do anything though.
Probably
maybe. Not. I mean, I'd prefer you to just like it once. Denise says, I'll start and say I had a great spiritual moment this morning. Oh, that's exciting. I would love to hear more about that. That's always a great thing. I mean, a few days ago, this was actually yesterday, I started playing the piano and I was playing Awesome God. That song's been like, I've just been playing that a whole lot lately. But the issue is that a lot of people that with that song, they only know the chorus. But the verses, like by Rich Mullins, Awesome God by Rich Mullins, that song right there, man, it's so good. If you have the verses and the chorus back to back, it's just amazing. I was playing that a few days ago or yesterday, and I was playing it on the piano, and then I got up, and then I was just like singing it around the house, like without the piano. And then I went and grabbed my guitar and started like jamming out. It was great. It was like this really good moment of just like worship, like just by myself. And I always like those because whenever I'm like singing to God by myself, I can trust that my heart's probably in the right place. You know what I mean? So that's always nice. But yeah, Denise, that's great. You had a good spiritual moment. I would love to hear more about that. Cool. So I guess without further ado, we can just kind of get started with this, huh?
Okay.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say to get us started? Oh yeah. Wait, I forgot to keep talking about this. I got my green tea, Arizona green tea right here. And I just thought I'd open this because it'd be very satisfying. Oh yeah. And so I'm gonna be drinking this throughout the video.
ASMR.
Oh no!
Action going.
No. Oh, I'm ashamed that you even brought that up. Okay, so we're gonna get started, and we're gonna have Jonathan start telling us his life story, his walk with God, and I'm going to interrupt it whenever I want because this is my channel and I can do that. So go for it, Jonathan.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing about okay. Yes.
Yeah, don't worry, Hannah. We're not gonna get into that at all. Okay.
Yes. So I kind of always one of the things I was thinking about is I think the first time I ever had to tell my testimony was at my home church, and my group had been talking about giving their testimony. Well, I brought it up because I wanted the group to kind of get closer to each other. And I was like, maybe we should share our testimonies. And they said, well, I mean, why don't you start then? So I was like, okay. And I realized at that point, I never like really officially given my testimony. And I've kind of told my story to people, but I guess not in a way that seemed like an official, I'm telling you my testimony way. And so I didn't really know exactly what I should say, because it was more of me just saying like struggles I had. And I think the first time I did it, I didn't really talk much about like how God has worked through that. I mean, I guess I did. I don't know. So I just feel like it's, I just wanted to say that giving your testimony, I feel like is a good way to kind of realize how God has worked on your life and kind of realize what the steps he's taken in your life. Sometimes we go through life and go through things and don't think about it too much.
Well, I think that's something that I've just seen, even whenever you're just studying the Bible, you realize how many times certain stories are repeated over and over and over again. I mean, the Exodus story, it's detailed first and foremost in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
Mm-hmm.
But that story is recounted throughout the rest of the Old Testament and the New Testament as well. Like they're constantly going back to that because it testifies to God's faithfulness in their history. And the same thing happens again whenever you get to the exile, right? Whenever they're sent off to Babylon and they come back. That story is repeated again and again and again throughout the rest of the Old Testament and throughout the New Testament too. It's constantly referenced. You get to the Apostle Paul, and he's constantly making reference to his Damascus Road experience and telling that story. And so I think that there is a value to reflecting on your life and seeing how God's been at work at that. Because a lot of the times I think we just get so focused on the present or looking to the future that we really lose out on a big aspect, a very important aspect of walking with God. Like just looking at his faithfulness throughout our lives already. And using that as further motivation to live by faith in the present, but also to just reflect on the glory that he deserves.
Right.
And so I just think that's a really important aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
You can proceed.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Interject as much as you want. But yeah, I always like to start with kind of my dad and my home life at the time. So growing up, I'm pretty sure that I always was going to church. Like I'm as far back as I can remember, I was going to church. So I'm a church kid. I've been in church my whole life. I've been Baptist my whole life. So, but in the beginning, I don't think my dad was necessarily, he was kind of going to church for me and not just because he knew it was good for him. So, and there was a lot of issues with like my dad drinking and things like that. And, there was a bit of hardship there. And there was a point in time when he just decided, hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to turn my life over to God and be there for my son. And I think that was a huge impact on my life because it showed me like what sacrificing your own desires is about. And I think that's something I've thought about a lot in my life, is how that's impacted what I view as a good father, and what giving up things we want, like not being selfish. A lot of these things, like I just like, it's just a thing that happened in my life that I've always kind of taken for granted. But yeah, that was a big impact that he did that, and I'm very blessed that he did decide to do that.
Yeah,
and
I mean that's something we've been talking about in the Bible study group that you have been skipping every week. I'm kidding.
I go to another Bible study.
He's busy. But we've been going through the book of Judges, and one thing that we've been talking about a whole lot is the influence that we have over the next generation. Because that's something that also, once again, is a very prevalent theme throughout the whole Bible. But basically, faithfulness to God is always one generation away from extinction, because it's always, you have to pass it on to the next generation, and that's something where I think just the more I've read the Bible, the more I've seen people, like the more I've learned people's stories throughout, like just interacting with them both in like videos like this, but also just in churches and stuff, you realize the influence that parents really do have over that. And that's why, I mean, like the book of Proverbs, we've been also going through that in the Bible study. We always do a proverb each week, but the book of Proverbs is dedicated to like a son, right? It's like a collection of sayings that the guy says, this is for my son. And it's instructing him in the ways, right? Obviously, it applies to everybody, but it's really like Solomon collecting all these things to pass on to his children to teach them to walk wisely. And I think that there's just a very important thing there that we, I don't know, that the more I've seen it, the more I'm like, okay, I want to be a good dad one day. And it's really important, especially working in youth ministry. I realize how difficult it is to minister to kids if their parents aren't also ministering to them at home. Because a lot of times, parents drop their kids off at church and expect us to turn them into godly people whenever we only see them an hour each week. It's like, no, you're spending the most time with them at home. You really need to work on trying to develop those godly characteristics in them. Denise says, yes, I attribute my mom for showing me God. Absolutely. I think one of the most crucial influences in my life was actually my grandmother. She passed away back in 2010, but I think she was probably one of the most crucial influences in me when it comes to my walk with God. But all right, continue.
So I don't remember if so I can't remember the exact date I got saved, but I was young. I was probably 5 or 6, and I'm laughing at Stephanie. um,
Stephanie says, y'all hit my soapbox. Yes. We'll have her on next time to rant about it. Okay.
Yeah, so I can't remember if it was before, well, just because I don't know when all this was going on with my dad. It was when I was pretty young. So I don't know if I accepted Christ before that or after. It's a good story to say that he changed his life around, and then because of that, I decided. But I don't know. He was still encouraging me even before that and going to church. And there was always this idea of like, don't just say the words and say the prayer without knowing what it means. Make sure you make the decision for yourself. But I think even then, I still didn't exactly know what being saved meant. And then that's also when I was listening to you and Hannah, I thought about what y'all were talking about, because there always seems to be two. I mean, there's lots of testimonies and lots of stories, but there's two kind of general stories and categories you fall in. You either became saved when you were young and grew up in church, and then you might fall away a little bit. A lot of people go off to college or something, and then they just struggle with making their faith their own, like figuring out what faith means to them and what their relationship with God looks like. And then there's people who go maybe a long time without knowing Christ, and they just reach rock bottom, and then through that they see the grace and they understand it, and it makes a lot more sense. And in a way, they kind of meet up in the middle, like when they get to that point, the people who have been, so it's all kind of the same. And I just think that's kind of cool how God works in different ways.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things, because I think growing up in church culture, we're kind of almost taught that the more extreme testimonies are the better ones.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that they show on Sunday morning. You know, like
Yeah.
whenever you're growing up in youth group, they're going to show you a video about this like former drug addict who turned to Christ. And so inherently you're sitting there, you're like, well, that's not my story. Like, and so it's like one of those things, like that actually messed me up for a while.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, I want to just go make some stupid mistake just so I can say like, oh, I came to Christ.
Well, and usually those people, or most of the time, a lot of those people seem so assured in their faith. And when you grow up in church, you just feel like you're always, I mean, maybe not everyone, but you always feel like you're kind of struggling with your faith. And
I think it's easier because you have this radical transformation. Whereas if you grow up in church, it's almost a little bit harder, because you kind of grew up with these moral principles.
Right.
And so now you're having to really dissect, okay, it's not really my worldview that's changing, it's my heart. Because my world, like, you're already being raised up in a Christian worldview. Now you've got to just figure out, has my heart been given to Christ? That's the issue.
Yeah.
Whereas for a person who's like, like just living for sin constantly, like doing like horrible things, that person, whenever they come to Christ, well, they know, because literally everything has changed. And it's a lot harder if you've grown up in church culture, because everything does change, but it's going to change in a little bit of a different way. Your passion is going to, your passion is going to be for him in a different manner.
Yeah.
Denise says they make movies about those. I'm assuming that you're talking about the dramatic testimonies. Absolutely. They you don't typically see a lot of movies about people who grew up in church culture, unless it's like a success story. It's like, oh, they were struggling to pursue their passion, and then they were failing, and then they finally succeeded.
Well, there's no drama and interest in someone who just lives their life for Christ.
But I think there is, because I mean, it's harder to get behind it.
Yeah.
Because you do need something. That's the issue with movies. There has to be conflict.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gets boring to just watch the same thing. But the thing is, you can find conflict in there. And I think a lot of the times, maybe a story about a person growing up in church, you could actually do like a deeper, more artsy film, because it could be really focused on the psychology and like the heart. Like it could be more internal. You can kind of wrestle through that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably a way to do it. But I will admit that it's not as dramatic and as seeing like a drug addict come to Christ. Hannah says that it's hard to decipher if you're doing it because it's right or if your heart's really different. Absolutely. I think it's one of those things. That's why people who grow up in church naturally kind of we gravitate towards legalism, because we get passionate about God and then we make it primarily about obeying his commands, which that's very important.
Yeah.
But the heart has to precede it, Yeah. Denise says, LOL.
Hi, Cindy.
Cindy says, hello. Hi, Cindy. Hannah says, David can find conflict in any movie. Yes, I can. Hannah's actually recently been challenging me to watch movies with a less analytical eye, just to enjoy the movies. And it's been a fun challenge for me, because I am not very good at that. I really like, y'all know me at this point. Y'all have been watching these videos long enough. have very strong opinions, and I like sharing them, and I like analyzing everything. And so, yeah. But okay, sorry, continue. Back to your testimony. As you can see, once again, we're going to be rambling quite a bit. Or I am, at least.
So yeah, so I accepted Christ, and I think there was an element of, because of the way my parents told me what being saved meant, and it wasn't just something I did because like everyone was saying to do it, or that it was the thing you do when you're in church. But I think I still like turn your phone off during live streams, David.
I'm sorry. I'll turn it off.
Interrupting stuff over here.
I'm just too popular. Okay, sorry.
But yeah, so I just I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. You're talking about your parents explaining it to you and the salvation and stuff like that. Don't know if that's shocking anything. You got notes. Look at those.
That's not for that. Oh, that was another thing I was gonna say earlier. Like when we do video, well, even now for the live stream, but when we do videos, it's always like I like to be a thoughtful person about things, but that's hard to do when you're like on the spot and you're asking questions, not you specifically, but you're just thinking about something, because I like to think about it before I give an answer. So normally I take notes. That's what I did today, just kind of to prepare. But then it feels scripted, like I'm saying things that I just wrote down beforehand, and it doesn't feel as genuine.
My danger is that if I take notes, I will talk way too long.
Like
I already do such long videos. Yeah. But if I take notes, I will talk even longer, and I don't think anybody wants me to do that. So, I mean, for my Lives of the Apostles series, I will take notes. But and also right now I'm talking so that you can try to regain your train of thought. So be thinking about that. right now it's not the time to be paying attention to what I'm saying.
I will stop listening to you.
Yeah, but during my Lives of the Apostles series, I do take notes because I'm trying to reference a lot of scholarly sources, stuff like that, and I'm having to read the Bible and stuff like that. So I will do it there. Denise says I would write notes too. Notes are very helpful. They help you keep your train of thought. And Stephanie also agrees. Notes are my lifeline. I used to take a lot of notes and stuff. But usually with my experience with notes, sorry, I just noticed I've got like these headphones here. I'm moving them. Usually my experience with notes is that either I will make my lesson too short, like what I'm talking about, I'll make it too short because I'll stick to the notes and say nothing else. And then I'm just looking at the notes and not looking away. And in that case, it feels scripted.
Yeah.
Or I will elaborate on every single thing that I wrote down. And then what was supposed to be a 30-minute talk will turn into 5 hours. And I don't want to do that either. And so, do you have your train of thought again? You know where you're going to go?
Yeah.
All right.
I
we're good to go.
think I'm good.
Sweet.
But yeah, I was just going to say, so yeah, I think I still have like learned making my faith my own, because growing up in church is usually what your parents taught you and kind of the ideals your parents instilled in you. And so when you get older, kind of around the age where you're becoming independent, moving out of the house, those things, you're also becoming independent in your faith, and you have to figure out what that means. So I've definitely gone through that. I didn't go off to college per se. I didn't go live in a dorm and experience that.
You didn't go find yourself?
Yeah, I didn't go find myself.
Sorry, I don't like when people say that they have to go find themselves.
Yeah,
that's just a little side comment. Okay.
But I still had to work through that and figure out what that meant to me, and not be just like, oh, I'm doing this because my parents taught me to do it this way, and just kind of getting into the Bible on my own and praying on my own and building my own relationship with Christ. So. And when you were talking with Hannah about the sinner's prayer thing, I thought about that a lot too, because a lot of people, they think of it as a one and done thing, and the big thing through my walk is that it's about a relationship. So like that's what the verse says. I don't know which one it is, but it's like when you get to heaven and God says you didn't know me. Because it's not about you said a prayer and you accepted God and you love him. Like love is actually getting to know someone, in this case getting to know God and having a relationship.
That's one of the most terrifying verses to me.
Yeah.
It's from the Sermon on the Mount, which we might see Jesus say this in season 3 of The Chosen. I don't know, but I don't know if they're going to give us the whole Sermon on the Mount or what they're going to do there, but it's Matthew chapter 7, and it's when Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. There will be many who come before him and they'll say, Jesus, we perform miracles in your name. We cast out demons. We went and proclaimed your gospel. And he'll say, depart from me. I never knew you. That's terrifying to me, because these people, they're saying that not only did they pray the sinner's prayer, not only did they do the Christian thing, but they called him master. They called him Lord. Like they genuinely thought that they were pursuing him, but they weren't, because they didn't know him. And that's an issue. And yeah, that's what happens whenever we just emptily obey, and it's just strict obedience without the heart behind it. And that's where you get the idea that it is a relationship. A lot of people say it's a relationship, not a religion. I disagree with that. I think it's a relationship and a religion, but it's a religion that can only be initiated by a relationship.
It's not an empty religion where there's
Yes.
no connection. Like you need to have that relationship with God as
Absolutely.
well. So that's something I've just learned through time, and that building that is the important thing. And a lot of people kind of miss that. That's the point. They're just like, well, I said the prayer, I'm saved now. Why is everything going wrong? It's like, because you're not working on building a relationship with God. I also think that's why it's so important to get involved in a church and be in community. And being in isolation makes that really hard to just be accountable and to stay focused on God and just renew your mind every week.
Well, the Bible knows nothing about a Christian apart from the local church. Well, like the assumption, like that's the very individualistic mindset thing that we've kind of adopted nowadays, where we think that we can have we emphasize the personal relationship aspect of things, which is good. But sometimes we overemphasize it to the point where it's my relationship. Get out of my business. I'm gonna do a lot of times we use it to justify complacency. And we say, hey, it's a personal relationship with Jesus. I don't need to go to church. The Bible knows nothing of a Christian who is separated from a local church community, because it is very, very crucial to your walk with God. And that's something I had to learn, because I grew up going to church, but I was not really connected with the community at the church. I mean, I knew that people knew who I was. I knew who they were because I'd gone there my entire life. And I guess I was fairly involved, but I don't think it was really until my senior year in high school that I actually started developing a very strong Christian community. And sometimes I think the word community is overplayed, but I don't know a better word for it. That's one of those things. I hear people using words all the time. So I'm like, I wish I had another word. But I don't think it was till my senior year of high school that I really got involved with Christian community. Up until then, it was literally just the grace of God keeping me going, to where he was keeping me faithful. And I think I was genuinely saved. And I would go to church and I would do all that stuff. I would get involved with different church functions, but not to the degree that I think was necessary. And then I think that's something that as the years go on, the more crucial I realize that Christian community is. I don't think you should become codependent on it, because I've seen some people do that extreme. I've had some very close friends who, man, if they were not meeting up with their youth group every single day, they could not go 5 minutes without sinning. And they're like, David, I could predict to a T, whenever they'd want to meet up, because they could not stop sinning if they were I was like, well, that's an issue as well.
It's kind of it's like a pendulum, kind of like all things. And
you don't want to go to one extreme. You need to be involved with the Christian community, but you also don't want to be dependent on them to where it's just a self-help group. You want it to be a group of Christians who are encouraging one another to grow in Christ in such a way that they become stronger in their faith and they can stand firm on their own. But
you build relationships to get encouraged to build your relationship with Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think and at this point in time, probably I guess my senior year, I had gone through public school, and I was always kind of known as this good Christian kid.
I probably would have hated you.
Yeah, probably.
Because I was known as the good Christian kid. I didn't like other people who were known as good Christian
better
kids.
Christian kid thing.
Yeah, I was self-righteous.
Yeah.
I was a Pharisee.
I don't know if I've dealt with self-righteousness, maybe a little bit. I mean, I'm sure I did, but
never dealt with self-righteousness. The surest side of the person who has dealt. The surest side of self-righteousness is the person who thinks that they're not self-righteous. I'm kidding. He's a pretty humble guy.
But yeah, I would get people tell me that and kind of view me as that. And so I think when people view you as that, you believe it about yourself. And so it was around that time when I got in a relationship, and it just started going downhill for me. I started making decisions and realizing
a romantic relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend then, and it was not for God. She was not a Christian, and I just realized, came to a point where I was realizing that, obviously I knew being a Christian and being in church that I'm a sinner and I'm not perfect. But I guess that's what you're talking about with the self-righteousness thing. You kind of start to believe that oh, well, I'm kind of better than other people. I have it together because I'm a Christian. And that definitely wasn't the case. And at that point, I think was when I started kind of realizing that. And I also wasn't super involved in community.
Mm.
I was in like a class at my church for, I guess about when I was in high school there, I was in like the youth group. But then after this, when I went to college, there's a very small group because it was a very small church. And this is the same group that I talked to about giving testimony, because I just felt like I was at this church and we would meet up on Sunday morning and we would just do the lesson. There was no in-depth like getting to know each other and talking about each other's faith or what we struggle with. And I just, it was like wearing at me, is like, this is not, I don't feel like this is how church should be.
Well, that's another one of those places where there needs to be attention, because I've seen the other extreme as well, like to where you might have a group of people who all they do is get together and talk about their personal lives,
and never study the Bible.
and that's where it becomes just a self-help group. And I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah.
And the way that, like, whenever we do Bible studies, like I try to make it to where it's primarily Bible focused, but we can also incorporate personal life experience into there. And then usually I'll try to organize something in addition to the normal Bible study to where we can get together and,
well, that's what I was
get to
going to
know one
say. I
another.
think like Sunday can be like the Bible study and
Yeah.
you're learning and digging into the Bible, and other, like your other Bible study can, but like Wednesday nights I do with a guys group now.
Yeah.
And that's more about that. We're reading through Romans right now, and that's what it's about. But it's also a time for us to talk to each other, like we meet up and talk about, and that's really important. And I didn't really have that. There wasn't that extra part. It was just Sunday morning, and maybe we'd go out and have fun every once in a while. So that's kind of where I was at. And then I just was kind of in that phase. I'm not really feeling like I necessarily belonged in a specific group. I did try and be active, and they did do a couple more things at that church to like have fellowship and community.
Okay.
But it also was like I was graduating college, and there was a bunch of people starting college. So I was like working, and there was young people just graduating high school in the group. I just felt like a disconnect between my age and the other people. So, and then I started my job, which was like an hour away. And so eventually I moved and bought a house, and I was out in Sugarland, which is like an hour away from where we live right now. And it was just like, now I was in an isolated place. Like I didn't know anyone there except people I work with. And it took a long time to come over here where all the people I knew were, and spend time with them, because that's what I would tend to do is come back over here. And so I started kind of looking for a church, and I found a couple that I would go to, and I just never felt a sense of belonging. And I just knew in that time period that like I needed that group. I needed to connect with God in some way. And I never wanted it to be a selfish thing where I was going to church for me, because we do that a lot. We just find a church that satisfies whatever needs we have. And I was aware of that when I was searching. I didn't want to just do it because of that.
That's an issue that a lot of people have whenever they're church hopping too much.
Yeah.
Because really what they're doing is they'll justify it by like getting frustrated by like the smallest little things.
Yeah.
And then really it's just selfish. Like really sometimes you have to set aside your own personal desires and just worship God, find a group of people that love Jesus and who want to honor him and who have good theology and stick there. But it is very easy. I've seen it happen. I'm not saying this would happen.
Yeah, no.
But because I
agree.
if you hadn't done this, you wouldn't be in my life. So I'm grateful you did.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do kind of fall into that category where they're church hopping, and really it's just more self-focused. Like they want the music that suits them. They want the pastor that suits them, when really you just need to make it about God.
Yeah. By the way, hi Kim.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah, I put this comment on here earlier, but yes. Hi Kim. Hello. Yeah. So continue.
Man, I keep losing my train of thought. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so I was isolated in Sugarland, and I think by this point we were friends, because I remember talking to you and having conversations. So I think when I had moved out, I was looking for a new church. I had left my home church because of stuff I felt about the group, and they had a new pastor that he was more on the progressive Christianity side of things. And so I just wanted to find a new church, and the main focus that I had was finding a group of people my age that I could talk to that are going through similar stages of life and similar things as me, and also could connect with each other and not just be this once a Sunday thing and then you go home and it's over for the rest of the week. So it was at that time when I had a friend that was going to David's Bible study, and she invited me to come, and so I started going to that Bible study for a while. So First Baptist, which is where David works at and goes, was very close to my house. I had been there before, just a couple times to visit.
The house where you grew up at.
Yeah, the house where, not my Sugarland house. So it's kind of ironic that it was never my home church, but it's literally, it's like less than
5 minutes,
a mile from my home
really
church.
Close.
It's right down the road. And so I just started going to their Bible study, and I got to know David really well, and I was really thankful for that.
The first day I met you, we went to IHOP afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Was that the day that I drank this?
You drank syrup.
Yeah. So we went to IHOP after we usually we'll go out to eat after Bible study, and at this point nowadays we just go to Chili's every week because Chili's is the best, and you get the 3 for $10 deal. It doesn't get better than that. Chili's, please sponsor me. No, but we went to IHOP, and I think I was just in a really goofy mood that day, and Jonathan was sitting next to me, and I'd ordered like the triple chocolate chip pancakes or whatever, and then
I just drenched it.
Well, I think somebody dared me to or something. I just like.
Well, no, was the drenching a dare?
I think so.
I thought just the drinking.
No, I think they dared me because maybe I was just goofy. Yeah, I probably just drenched it. I like filled the whole plate up with syrup, and so then somebody dared me to drink the syrup.
Yeah,
and I drank it. And I felt sick afterwards, but it was funny. Denise says, I love pancakes, and she said, good choice. So, yes, thank you. Very good choice. Chocolate is my weakness.
Yeah, so. But that was my first experience with David. So
yes.
He's a little crazy.
A little bit.
But yeah, we became really good friends, and he's gotten me to do crazy stuff like Spartan races.
Later on, I'll have you tell the Grand Canyon story.
Okay.
We don't have to do that now, but we'll get it later.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just been great. I've really enjoyed his friendship and his advice. He's just someone I can go to.
What can I say? I do give very good advice. No, I'm not kidding.
No, he is great. He's a very godly man. So I'm very appreciative of that. And so shortly after that, I started going to my church. A glass of syrup. A glass of syrup?
A glass of syrup.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, I could say that I did drink it, and it was delicious at first, but it was a bit much.
Yes, I am Hannah.
Hannah. Oh, is this Grand Canyon Jonathan? Yes, it is. Wow, look, she even spelled your name correctly. Yeah, because your name actually is spelled with an O, correct? Yeah, he spells it both ways, but technically his name is actually spelled with an O. So look at that.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But I've always spelled it with an A.
Yes.
The actual spelling is with an O.
Yes. Stephanie says I'm gonna have to start referring to you as Grand Canyon Jonathan. Nice. Yeah. So I'll have we're gonna have him talk about we'll talk about the Grand Canyon in a little bit. But one thing that I've always thought was really funny is that we're really good friends, and like my name's David and your name's Jonathan. And you're older than I am. Yeah. And so I always joke around with him that like I need to probably stay pretty far away from his dad, or else his dad's gonna like chuck a spear at me and try to kill me or something. If you don't know the story of David, go read it, and that joke will make a lot more sense. If not, you're probably really confused right now. But yeah,
I don't think he's ever thrown a spear before.
Okay, and you have, because we've done Spartan races.
Yeah, I have. Hey, I made it in the target last time we did it. Yeah. That was great.
Yeah. But yes, this is Grand Canyon Jonathan, so get excited for this. Denise says LOL. Yep, absolutely. Laughing out loud. All right, continue, I guess.
I'm pretty much wrapping up, but yeah, so shortly after that, I found my home church now, which is Sagemont, and it's been great. I finally found a group of people that, it was a newly started class that I went to there. And it was growing, and people were excited about getting to know each other and growing the class. And I got a chance to be involved in it. And it's just been great. Like I've been wanting to serve and be part of that. And I've been in my Bible reading more and praying more than.
What have you been reading lately?
Well, right now I'm going through the whole Bible, which I've never done before. So right now I'm in Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
So like I know pretty much all the stories of the Bible because I grew up in church, but I've never taken the time to read through the whole Bible. So I think that's definitely important if you're a Christian. Do that at least once in your life.
Yep. I was reading Esther today. I read the whole book today, and man, that story is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy. Like, I mean, it's sad, but I've read other books multiple times through, and I've never read the Bible once all the way through.
I mean, that's how I was. I think it was in the middle of college. I think honestly, it might have been whenever I decided I was going into ministry. I was like, oh man, I probably need to read the whole Bible.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I'd read 95% of it. And a lot, and like probably 15% of it, I'd read like 30 times. But I knew there were just like little portions I probably hadn't read, mainly because we don't go through it in churches. And so I did want to study that more. And so now I'm on my third read through now, because I read it once while I was finishing up college. And then I started at the end of college, I started this 3.5-year journey, like the chapter a day thing. And now I'm 60 days in. Today was day 58. I'm 58 days into reading through the Bible in 100 days.
Nice.
And
it's been a lot.
It's a lot. It's been a big time commitment too. But so you're in Deuteronomy. That's good.
Yeah, I think as when I was younger, when I would read the Bible, I would read the Gospels a lot. So that was where most of my Bible reading was. But yeah, so I found a church, and so there's no big turning events. It's been small events and realizations and just growing, like sanctification. That's what my walk has been like, and God has been there in very powerful ways. And I've had low moments, but I've always felt like I was relying on God, and so He's just been there for me through it.
This might be kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but what are some of the lessons? Like, if you were to kind of just like reflect on the whole thing, what are some of the key lessons you think that you could draw out of how God's been working through you so far? Like, I'm not talking about anything like super core deep, like maybe just like key themes.
Yeah.
But I know this is something that, like, while you're thinking of this, there's something that I have on my phone where I started keeping track of this in college. Let me see if I can pull it up. I literally have this. I have this note on my phone, which I don't know if you can see it. Oh, okay. No, it's not gonna. Wait. Oh, where's it at? Oh, there you go, right there. Boom. It's God's lessons to me, and I literally started in the fall of 2016, and I just started like basically once I got to the end of like it kind of was like a semester by semester basis where I would notice like key themes coming out, like just things that God was kind of teaching me over the course of that time period. And so fall of 2016, He was teaching me about what grace actually means. And then spring 2017, He was teaching me what love actually means. Fall of 2017, He was teaching me what surrender was. Like what does it truly mean to surrender to God? This is probably during that time period when I started really getting more specific and strong in my opinions, because I realized like the biblical view of what it means to give yourself to God is a lot stricter than I think we typically promote in modern Christian circles. And then you go to spring 2018. Like I noticed that a lot of these, I've actually taken time before. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I've taken time where I've actually seen how like these themes build upon one another. Because I think God's like a teacher, kind of like whenever you're going through school, you start off a kid with basic arithmetic, addition, subtraction, and then you teach them multiplication, then division, and eventually by the end of it, you're doing logarithms and exponential stuff, and you're doing calculus and calculus 2, calculus 3, all this stuff. But it starts with something that builds up. And I noticed that's kind of how God was working on me a little bit. So it's grace, love, surrender, and then it goes to worship and discipline, because once I learned what it meant to surrender, I could know what it truly meant to worship God, and I could also know what it meant to be disciplined in my walk with God, because those are two aspects of surrender. Yeah. And then it built on to, it seems like we returned back to the theme of grace, which was interesting. Like, but it's like weird, like how sometimes He has to reteach me lessons because I'll be so focused on one thing that I'll lose track of something He's already taught me. And so I just try to like track these different themes in my life, to where most recently, fall 2021, I've got it written down. So this is what, as best I can discern, this is what I think God's kind of working on with me. Returning to my first love. And that is also a side lesson would be temptation and desire, and how those two things relate to one another. And I think that I had a very similar thing back in a few years ago where it's very similar. But I keep track of that because I think it's kind of cool just to see how key themes have been like popping up in my life. And whenever I look at my journals that I keep, I can also see those themes coming out and popping out in the journals. And so I think that's really cool. But now I've talked long enough to try to give you some time to think. That's basically what I was doing.
Okay.
Do you have any like key themes or something like that you've seen God teaching you?
Well, I think as a kid, I was definitely blessed to have parents that showed me how to love well. My dad, in terms of how he changed his life for me, and my mom, and how she dealt with that relationship, and how she made it work, and what love really means. There's not a feeling, and that it requires sacrifice. And I think when I started getting older and started getting in that relationship with that girl, just what temptation actually looked like. I mean, obviously I'd sinned and been tempted and done small things, but that was really when it was hitting me that like you're susceptible to this also. And then just grace, I think in that long period after that event, it was just learning that I'm forgiven and that that's over, that's in the past, that it's a lesson to learn from for the future. And I think the lesson there was just trusting God and having patience, which is ironic because I'm a very patient person. But, when you have a thing that you want, it's hard to have that patience to allow God to just give it to you. And so I've definitely learned that. And then I think just the importance of community and being in a inside the church and a group of people that can be accountable for you and keep you growing in Christ. And so, I think those are.
Yeah, I think community was something that I just really had to learn because I think naturally, people are always surprised by this whenever I say it, but naturally I'm not very extroverted or social. I know I talk a lot, but that's not the same thing. I'm not naturally a very social person. I think being in ministry, I force myself to go do more social things because I realize that community is very important, but that's why. The majority of my early life, I was totally fine. Just like I was in my Bible, I studied it, I went to church, I did all those things, but I don't know. Like I said earlier, it was kind of just the grace of God keeping me going to where really I think that I probably should have been tempted by a lot more things than I was. Just because, I mean, I wasn't as involved as I probably should have been. But by the grace of God, I kind of escaped a lot of the temptations I saw my friends facing. But I realized that once I started really hanging out with Christian community, I started growing so much exponentially faster. I was like, man, if I'd been doing this from the beginning, I'd be a superstar by now.
I agree.
But so it's one of those things I think that I don't know how to fix it. Just because I think that churches haven't really perfected it yet, because I think people always struggle with that tension, right? You have to like trying to return to the whole first century style Christian church community. Everybody wants to return to it, but everybody's debating on how to actually accomplish that.
Right.
And I don't really know how to do that. I think we just all have to try our best. And I think it takes a lot more effort than we're usually willing to put in, because a lot of times we compartmentalize church and, it's like, I've got so many other things I want to do today, but if we can make church a priority, that's the way to do it. Yeah. And like, we need to make it to where it's not just like, if I have time, I'll meet up with my fellow believers. I'm going to make time to do it. Yeah. A lot of times people say they don't have time for something. You always have time to do something. It's just a matter of what's your priority. You might have to set aside other things. I've seen this even, there's this one, like sometimes I go to this one Bible study, which isn't necessarily my favorite thing to go to because of the content, because sometimes I think, you know what? It's not as deep as I'd like to go. But then I have to catch myself because I realize that's a very selfish way of viewing this. Like, I'm viewing it based off what do I get out of it? And I think a lot of times we view church that way. Like, we view it as a transaction. Like, I'm going so I can get something out of it. And so I have to force myself sometimes, I'm going to go to this Bible study anyways, just to be with this group of believers, to encourage one another in Christ. And who knows, maybe if I'm not getting anything out of it, maybe I can contribute something to it to help others grow. And so rather than making it self-seeking, it's actually self-giving. And I think that's probably a proper way to view Christian community. I mean, I don't do this perfectly. This is something where my guilt overtakes me and I'm like, okay, something's wrong. I need to go to this thing.
Yeah. Well, it's almost one of those things, because I struggle with that too. I don't know if it's because I'm more introverted or what, but sometimes, and it's not even with necessarily just church related stuff, but events and things in general, like I'll have this thought, like, I don't want to go, like, I said I'm going to go, but it's fine. No one will really care. And I'll just like spend time alone today. And then I end up going, and I'm always so thankful for it.
Mhm.
And that's especially true for Bible studies and
Yeah.
being in fellowship with other Christian believers.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I feel like that almost makes it like that's a sign that it is a good thing that you're doing, that you're doing it
Yeah.
for the right reason, because you didn't want to go in the first place.
Yeah.
So I know, I struggle with that a
Yeah.
lot. So yeah.
Good stuff. Well, we are about to turn to our Q&A session, so be sure to start just throwing some questions in the comments if you have any that you want to ask Jonathan or me or both of us about literally anything. I don't care. We're about to just give free reign to just talk. But while y'all are throwing questions in there, and even if you know us, just throw something in there. Ask a funny question. Ask something silly. We don't care.
Yeah,
We're just going to have
ask
fun.
me about my dog.
There you go. Yeah, I want to know about your dog, but we'll ask about it in a second.
Okay.
While people are throwing comments in there, or while I'm generating comments to fill the gap because nobody asks anything, let's talk about the Grand Canyon thing. Because thank you for sharing the testimony. Now let's just talk about the Grand Canyon story, because this is kind of an interesting tale that we got to share together. And I haven't really talked about it on this YouTube channel, and I still need to post the vlogs. The last vlog that I haven't edited. I actually have time to edit it this week. Maybe I'll try to remember to do that. I just need to remember to. But let's talk about the Grand Canyon. You want to tell the story?
Yeah, I guess
Go
I
for
can. I usually like to start stories from the beginning. I guess I'm kind of like John when he writes
In the beginning. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and in this earth, there's this canyon.
Okay. Well, I guess, do you want to answer her question, or you want to start with the story?
Well, what we'll do is we'll just tell the story, so
Okay.
and we can let the questions
Okay.
stack up, and so we'll go to the questions
Sounds
afterwards. Yeah.
Okay. So how far in the beginning do I start?
No idea.
So I got invited to go hike the Grand Canyon with David, and I don't remember how. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I
Jonathan, you're not allowed to look at the comments.
No, sorry.
Look at the camera and talk. We'll look at the comments later.
So David invited me to this. I don't remember how far ahead it was, but I remember thinking like, oh, it's a hike. It's not going to be that bad, and I'll get to see the Grand Canyon. I'd never been to the Grand Canyon before.
So we're doing the rim to rim.
Rim to rim.
Yes. So it's about 25 miles.
Yep. And so
in one day.
I don't think I knew, like, either I didn't know the details, or I just didn't take the time to actually. Probably I just didn't take the time to look up what we were actually doing. But I remember it was getting close, and we were kind of training for it, and he was like, make me realize that it was a pretty long hike. And then I just remember him being like, yeah, it's like next week, because we went on a practice hike.
Yeah. So for some context, our pastor, one of his sons, he had invited me to go on this hike like over a year and a half ago. We were supposed to go on this hike back in, I believe, May of 2020, but then the pandemic hit, and so we couldn't do it. And then we were going to do it in September of 2020. But at the time, the Grand Canyon had these weird rules. We were going to have to wear masks the entire hike. That's not going to happen. And so we decided not to do it then either. And so it got pushed back a whole nother year. Finally, as the final months are approaching, they said, hey, we've got another spot open. Do you have any friends? And I was like, hey, Jonathan, you want to do it? And he just was like, sure.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, Jonathan, you do realize what this is. Like, just to be clear, he's like, yeah, I've never really done any hiking, but why not? And one thing that I had done whenever we were originally supposed to do this, back over in May 2020, like months before that, I had actually hiked from my house, where I'm at right now, to Galveston, Texas. Which it was a 25-mile hike, and I literally just hiked along the highway. Probably not the safest thing I've ever done, and it was pretty tiring. And to be fair, that was also like in the heat of Texas, but it was flat, right? And so that was flat, whereas the Grand Canyon, you're going down, you're going back up. I realized this was going to be pretty difficult, and so I invited Jonathan, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll go do it." And I was like, "Okay, impressive." And then one day, like for a few weeks, I've been badgering him, been like, "Hey, we should train for this. Like, we should go do something."
Yeah, I think I was busy or had to.
Yeah.
Something.
Well, he was like, there were a few times where like we were gonna do it, and then like he texted me that morning. He'd be like, "Actually, like something went wrong. I won't be able to be there."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, fair enough." Like honestly, I was feeling kind of lazy. I'd just go back to bed because we were gonna start hiking at like 5 a.m.
Well, and I think I wasn't super worried about not being able to make it. So it's like, we can just try again another week.
Yeah.
It's far.
Well, and you thought you had a long time.
Yeah, it's way in the future.
Yeah. And then finally, I was like, Jonathan, we really need to meet up this weekend. And the thing is, I'd sent him all the information. So I thought he knew. And so he meets up at my house. And I was like, yeah, man, next week's going to be crazy or something. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, Jonathan, the hike is next week. And so I'd been training for this for a while. And he was like, "Oh crud!" And so we went on our hike, and we went 10 miles.
10 miles.
And so now we're caught back up to
So
where
not even half of what we're actually going to end up doing.
And we're also on flat ground.
Yeah. So, and I had been hiking before, but I don't hike. That's not something I'd done a lot of. And I'd specifically not done like backpack hiking. So, I just went out. I think I was in Boy Scouts, so we would camp and we would go like on a hike. Like I've done like E-Rock or something like Enchanted Rock. But I never done legit like long distance hiking with a backpack. So, Stephanie's saying, throwing shade at me.
Yes.
I didn't read it all, but, so it was coming up and I was excited about it. I've always been someone that's been kind of down to do like active things. And
he's like my go-to whenever I need to if I'm about to go do some crazy challenge, I'm like, "Hey, Jonathan, let's go do it." So,
and I was really excited about it because this was literally the first time I was ever going to the Grand Canyon. Never seen the Grand Canyon before. And I think that was the main pull for me is I wanted to go see it.
And I'd went once with my dad before.
Yeah. So we went on the trip. I met all the people from, I guess, church and from people at church that worked with them.
Yeah.
And we got to know some of them. There was another young couple. So we get there. It's really early morning. I had like a big jacket, a bunch of layers on because it was pretty cold. Yeah. And we started our descent.
Well, and the bus got postponed for like an hour because the bus wouldn't get started.
So we would have started earlier and it would have been cold longer.
We were supposed to start at 5. We were supposed to start the hike at 5 a.m. And you're hiking 25 miles, and it's supposed to take probably 12 to 15 hours on average. And so we were in for a pretty long day, but then it got pushed back another hour, so we were starting at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And so we begin the descent.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an important part because that plays into later. But so we started an hour late and we started descending, and David was at the front of the pack the whole time. I was in the back because I was trying to get my poles to work. I'd never used hiking poles before. And like you're supposed to pull them out and then lock them a certain way, but I didn't lock them right, so they would like go in whenever I pushed down. And so I was struggling with that, and I was like, these suck. And I was just like, I give up on them. And I was also getting warmer because it was getting warmer outside, and we were getting more towards the bottom where there wasn't as much wind. And because we were hiking, we were just warming up in general. So I was like also taking off my layers pretty quick. And eventually I caught up to David. And so for a good amount of time, well, I think most of that time until halfway through the canyon or until that first point. How long was that?
That was like 15. Like you talking about which part?
The very first
where we took a rest.
Yeah.
Where we did the postcards and stuff.
Yeah.
That was 14 miles in.
14 miles in. Okay.
Yeah. So we were 14 miles in, 11 miles left.
Yeah.
I think.
So for the first 14 miles, we were with this other young couple. We were way ahead of everybody. And
feeling good.
Yeah.
It was great. Like I was thriving.
So I think at this
I felt like running the whole way.
So my mindset this whole thing is I'm gonna die. But there's no way I'm gonna make a 24-mile hike smoothly.
Yeah. I was feeling great. Up until then, I was feeling great.
I kept a positive attitude about it. But I also had a Camelback. So I had bought a Camelback and brought it with me. And so I was drinking water through that the whole time. But David did not bring a Camelback.
Yeah, I brought a backpack that just had water in it. And the thing is, I'm a runner and stuff, and so I'm used to being thirsty. But I'm also from Texas, where humidity, like you can tell whenever you need water. Because like it's humid outside, and you're like, oh, I need something to drink. Well, whenever you're in the dry Arizona heat, you don't really notice it as much because I'm used to feeling like I need more water. And so we're just chugging along, and like they're just constantly sipping from their Camelbacks. Every time I needed water, I would have to stop, take my backpack off, and drink it.
Yeah, because you don't want to carry that around your
head. Because it's pretty heavy. And so I just was like, I can push through. And I was feeling really good. And I've never dehydrated before or anything. And so I was like, that's fine. And I wasn't that thirsty. I was just feeling like just chugging along.
Yeah, there's a point where we even ran. Like
we ran a few times.
I was not down for this, but I ran with them.
And we were making really good time. We were down. I think we were like set to finish the thing in like 7 hours or something.
Pretty. Yeah.
We were going quick. Like, no, maybe not 7 hours. That'd be pretty fast. Maybe 7 or 8. Yeah.
So
so
yeah,
cool.
and our goal was to try and finish before sunset, so we could get up on the other side and take pictures of the sunset
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we were making pretty good time. And then we get to the first big checkpoint, which has like a station where you can do postcards, and they have snacks, and so that was our first big rest point. So me and David, we wanted to get postcards to send to our girlfriends, and I think you sent one to your mom. But I got in line, and I didn't realize you also have to buy a stamp because I mean, obviously you need a stamp for a postcard. But I didn't realize you had to buy them from her at the same time, and she didn't offer me one. It was I don't know what was going on there, but so I got out of line with my postcard, and then saw David, and he's like, I was like, dude,
where'd you get the stamp?
I need a stamp? There's not a stamp over there. And so I had to get back in line. And anyways, the whole reason I tell this whole story is that we were taking a long time because we hadn't even taken our break really. We'd gotten some water, but we were like trying to do that, to send postcards.
So one important thing whenever it comes to like hiking and stuff is you don't want to take too long of a break because your body will cool down and then it'll start like stiffening up. And so like, it's better to like take short breaks along the way. And so that's why he's sharing all this, because it's going to affect things in a second. But
so after we got our postcards sent,
Stephanie says you also didn't realize you need the correct address. Yeah, Stephanie never got her postcard.
Yeah,
but my mom and Brienne got theirs. So I'm saying
sorry, Stephanie.
And also just it's really ironic because in my postcard, this will make sense in a second why it's ironic. In the postcard, I like was so positive. I was like, man, we're feeling so good. We're like over halfway. We're making really good time. We're in the lead of the pack, feeling awesome. Hope y'all are having a good time. And like 30 minutes later, it was going to be a vastly different story. But okay, continue.
Yeah, that was kind of a whole twist of the knife thing that I spent so much time getting a postcard that didn't even get to. But yeah, so after that, I put some Band-Aids on my foot, just on the spot where I was getting blisters. So this was all taking time, and I was snacking, and David was kind of wanting to go, and the couple that was with us had gone ahead. They didn't want to take a break.
They stopped for like 5 minutes.
They wanted to just keep
they
going.
were doing good.
And we actually had a couple people catch up to us that were behind. And so by the time we left, one of them decided to wait and go with us. It is the thought that counts. Hopefully someone has a really sweet postcard from me somewhere. So we got started going, and that was when we got to the bridge
that goes over the Colorado River.
Yeah, which was really cool. It felt like it wasn't really dangerous or anything, but it felt kind of like an Indiana Jones type bridge or something because the water was rushing really fast. And I think this was the point where David might have started kind of feeling it. A little bit.
So I this is the part where it went downhill for me very quickly. I'd been feeling good the entire way, and then we stopped at that rest thing, and I think we were there for like 45 minutes or something like that. And then finally we got up and we started hiking. We were hiking with another guy, and we made it about 30 minutes. We got to this bridge, we crossed the bridge, and then we got to these rolling sand dunes.
Another important thing about this is we were now at the hottest part of the day.
Yeah, so now it's like dead noon.
It was pretty cool. Like we got kind of, I don't know, lucky or not, but we just were ahead of the sun. Like we were in the shadows most of the time, and this was the first time the sun was actually like beating down on us. Yeah,
and so it's dead noon, and I think the high for that day was like 110 degrees. And so it was just going to get even hotter, like because it's noon, like from noon to 4 is like the hottest time of the day.
Yeah.
And so it was just going to get worse. And we get to these sand dunes, and now we're in the middle of this canyon. There's no shadows anywhere because the sun's right overhead. And all of a sudden, it just like hit me. Like I was feeling good, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh no.
It's like fatigue.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. And like I kind of just told them, I was like, hey guys, I just need to sit down real quick. And then once I sat down, I was done. I was like, oh no. And like I realized I hadn't really eaten much. I'd eaten a few things. Like I wasn't totally like not drinking water. I just probably wasn't drinking enough. But as we're going to see, as I'll explain in a second, even if I had drank water, it wouldn't have changed anything. So I tried eating food, but it just wasn't happening. And a lot of the food that I had brought, it had actually melted because I brought like Cliff Bars and stuff like that. And it was just like melt. It was like, so you couldn't even eat it. Like my mouth would just like kind of like, I couldn't actually eat the stuff. And so the one guy, he went on ahead, and then Jonathan stuck with me. and we started like walking, and we had like at this point we have 9 miles left. I
Yes.
believe.
So it's the hottest part of the day.
Yeah.
It's like all uphill now.
Yeah.
Like we had reached this. Well, mostly uphill.
So maybe that other place was 15 miles in, and we're 16 miles in now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're 16 miles in, and that's the thing, right? Like we're at the bottom of the canyon. We have 9 miles left, and it's all uphill. Like it's going to be gradual, and then the last 3 miles is going to be pretty steep.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like just wondering, like, where's the next rest stop? And the next rest stop is 3 miles away.
Yeah.
Or no, even more than that. I think,
it was
actually
pretty far.
Yeah, I think it was 6 miles.
It was Indian Gardens, right? Indian Gardens felt so far away.
Yeah, Indian Gardens is 4.5 miles, I think, from the top. So we were halfway from Indian Gardens, right? We're 9 miles to go, 4.5 miles to Indian Gardens, and I immediately just I was feeling bad, like bad. And so the other guy goes ahead, and then Jonathan sticks with me.
Yeah.
And we start walking, and like every probably 20 minutes or so.
It was pretty much every time. Well, not every time, but mostly when we found shade, because there was not a lot of shade.
Yeah.
So whenever there would be a shady spot, that would usually be when we took a break, so we could rest in the shade.
Yeah, and I remember there was this one point where it was crazy how quickly it happened, because I remember we were still like I could still see the Colorado River whenever we were talking. We were having this conversation.
Yeah.
Like we were sitting at this one spot, and I was just resting there. I was like eating a green apple, and I was talking with Jonathan, and I realized like, dude, I might not get out of here. Because just thinking about how far we had, like if I only had a mile left, I was like, I'm going to push through.
Yeah.
But with 9 miles left, and it was just going to get hotter, I was like, dude, I might not make it out of this canyon. Yeah. And I remember kind of like it kind of just got really serious. And like most of the other people, like some of the other people we encountered, I think they thought I was being over dramatic, but I think Jonathan knew me well enough to where like I've got way too much pride. And I've been like especially when it comes to physical stuff.
And I know that you're usually not one to just like complain about your physical condition. Yeah. Like you take it serious. You would only stop and slow down if it was really something serious.
Mainly, especially because I like I said, I'm proud.
Yeah.
I like doing extreme stuff. And so whenever there's like another couple way ahead of us, I want to catch them. So it was one of those things where I think he knew me well enough to realize this is serious. And so we started talking, and I realized, like, if there's a time to go, this is the way to do it. Like, you're just going to fall asleep and just not wake up.
And by that point, I was like, okay, David, don't close your eyes. Keep your eyes open.
Yeah. And so he stuck with me this whole time. Like, I was very grateful for you. And we're just getting up, and we're going like maybe 20 minutes at a time, sometimes even less than that. And eventually, like, it just starts going further and further uphill. And we got to this one part where it's like a bunch of switchbacks.
Yeah. And this is not the bad switchback part either.
No.
It was getting rough.
Yeah. And so finally, like I started cramping up. That's the issue as well. Like I was cramping up bad. Like it was like my all my muscles would just seize up, and I couldn't walk.
Well, you were wearing like compression tights too.
Yeah. Eventually, I had to cut them open. Poor tights.
Rip.
And
literally.
Then literally. And then so eventually, one of the guides catches up with us, and Jonathan at this point, he's like, I've been drinking a bunch of water now, right? I'm trying to hydrate myself up, but no matter how much I hydrate, I'm not getting hydrated. Like I'm drinking a bunch, but it's not doing anything.
So we had passed a couple of other people, and they get like in our group, and they had given them some salt tablets.
They gave me salt tablets. They gave me some water. I came across some other just hikers who weren't with our group, and they gave me food, and I tried to eat it, but nothing was like actually replenishing me.
It's just because like you were getting it at that moment, but it was already in effect.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while for that stuff to go.
Yeah. And through all this time, I started kind of thinking what caused this. Because I knew that I was in physical condition to do this hike. But I realized the issue is that at the time I was on this medication that literally, like I hadn't thought about this. It literally dehydrates you. And so I'd gotten off the medication in preparation for the trip, but I hadn't gotten off it soon enough. I got off it 2 days ahead of time, whereas this stuff takes about a week to get out of your system. And so it was literally dehydrating me. And so no matter how much I drank, it was like my body was a sponge.
Yeah.
And so it was like one of those things, like literally I was just getting weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
And at this point, Jonathan, he's also running out of water because he'd given me some.
Yeah.
And so it gets to the point where he's like, I gotta go. Like,
the guide was with us, and we'd gotten to a point where David had to rest, and it's probably the worst. Like it was just slowly getting worse and worse. I could tell he was feeling more and more fatigued.
At this point, it's about 2 miles left till Indian Garden, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was running out of water. And I was like, I have to go. Like, I can't stay. I would stay here with you, David, but and I told the guy like I'm out of water.
It
And
was
so
better to have one dead person.
Yeah,
than two.
so I'm gonna start getting
Yeah.
dehydrated, and
Yeah.
I was out of water. Well, I had like a little bit,
Yeah.
and I still had to go the 2 miles or whatever it was to
Mhm.
Indian Gardens.
Yeah.
So I took off, and I just trekked as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And it was a little scary because it's like, what if I get dehydrated trying to
Yeah.
get to there? But it was also kind of cool. Is like I was on a mission to
Yeah.
to get to the next point.
Yeah.
So I did make it there, and I found a bunch of our group. Some of the other people in our group were having a tough time too, and they had taken a long break there.
Yeah.
They had to because me and David were going super slow.
And I eventually caught them as well.
Yeah,
Like,
so-
I eventually passed
Yeah.
people, which is
So they were having a hard time,
Yeah.
and I hadn't realized that when I saw them.
Yeah.
But I also had this mindset that our goal was to finish by sunset
Mhm.
and to get pictures. And I had the camera. I forgot how I guess I don't know if you gave it to me. I think I
Yeah.
just had it with
Yeah.
me, and so I had the camera.
And we've been vlogging this entire time,
Yeah.
and I kid you not, I'm like dying at the bottom of the Great Canyon, and I'm thinking, Jonathan better be getting vlog content.
And I actually forgot about the vlog part,
Yeah.
but I did take a lot of pictures,
Yeah.
and I did vlog eventually. But yeah, I started making it. I just left the group. I went out of the group. I was like, I'm gonna make it to the top before sunset, and that was my goal. And so after Indian Gardens is literally the hardest part of the hike because it's all uphill, a bunch of switchbacks, super steep the whole way for,
Yeah,
for 3 miles.
Yeah, so after Indian Gardens, you have 4.5 miles left. An hour and a half is just like a gradual build, and then you have like 3 miles of just constant
Yeah.
switchbacks that are just up the side of the canyon.
Yeah.
And
So
so I guess you can finish your hike, and then I'll finish
yeah,
mine.
that sounds good. So I was just making my way downtown. Wow. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Might as well.
So
Also, Denise, by the way, if you're still watching, we will get to your question
We will,
eventually.
yeah.
We're just kind of letting people throw in questions,
Yeah.
and as of right now, I think yours is the only one, so we will get to it. But
so I started just making my way up the.
you started singing it again, didn't you?
I did.
You started singing it again. He started making his way up the canyon.
Thank you. And I would.
Okay, real quick. Denise says, "You two are so funny. This is entertaining despite your suffering." Honestly, Denise, it was entertaining in the moment as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jonathan probably took it more seriously than I did. I don't typically stress out very easily. Like, I'm actually just a pretty like I think that's another issue that a lot of the people who saw me, they thought I think they thought I was being over dramatic because I just had a good mood about this whole thing. Like, I remember the guy who orchestrated the whole trip, he caught up with me while I was still sitting in that place where you'd like left, and I was just sitting there and like beautiful view, and he's like, "David, what are you doing here? I thought you'd be miles ahead of us." And I just said, "Oh, just checking out the view." And really, like, I'm like collapsed on the ground, like my
Yeah.
my tights are like chopped up, ripped open. I've got like food everywhere, and yeah. So I agree. This was entertaining, even amidst the suffering. You gotta find some silver lining there.
Yeah.
Um,
So I mean, I will say that I was worried just because I knew that you were actually in bad shape. But I knew you were in good hands when I left because the guides who do this all the time were staying with him.
Mhm.
And so that's the main reason I was okay with leaving, is because there was someone that had water and supplies for David to help him out. So
God gave me the water. and
Yeah,
supplies I
God
needed.
gave you
He
the
had a food you know not of.
Where'd
Yeah.
you get the food?
Yeah.
So at this point, this is, I mean, obviously from what we said, it's the hardest part. This is when I thought it was possible for me to like get a cramp or start dehydrating. And I was taking a lot of breaks. I think I would walk for 30 seconds sometimes once I got more like closer to the top before I'd have to just lean against the wall for a bit before I started going. Because I really wanted to make it to the top. I didn't want to like collapse dehydrated and then not finish. And so I did make it. I did my first 25-mile hike of the Grand Canyon. It was a lot of fun, but I didn't make it before sunset.
You almost did. You missed by like what, like 20 minutes or something
So,
like that?
and I think that was why the bus being late in the beginning was important, because if we hadn't been late, I would have made it up top. But
yeah,
I did get a lot of pictures, and I vlogged when I think I was like, it's like 3 miles, so 1.5 miles or 2 miles up. I remembered to to vlog.
Vlog.
And so I made a quick vlog on
Yeah.
my phone. And I was getting texts from my girlfriend Stephanie.
Yeah.
And
Meanwhile, I am still. Oh, and he went off and got pizza and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I was still stuck. About the time you finished, I was probably just reaching Gardens. So I still had 4.5 miles left, and it was now getting dark. Right, the sun had already gone down, and well, as I was leaving Indian Garden, it had taken me a while to get there. Josh, the guy who was with me now, he was patient with me, and honestly, I was getting to know him, and I was actually I'm a very optimistic person, and so even whenever bad things happen, I'm always trying to find reasons why God might have allowed it to happen. And so I was looking, and I was realizing, I really got to meet this guy. I'm probably never going to see him again, but I was very grateful for his companionship, him being with me. I got to be humbled because I'm, like I said, I'm proud, especially when it comes to like physical activity. Like I like being the best at everything I do, whether that be fitness, whether it be Bible studies, anything. I like being the best.
And I think that was one reason I was a little intimidated by this, because I knew we were doing this incredible physical feat, and David was coming with me.
Yeah.
So I was like, he's just going to push me way harder
Yeah.
than I'm going to be able to go. And I'm going to feel bad because I'm way behind.
Yeah, I probably would have done that, which is bad. But I do have a lot of that pride. And so I think it was good that God was like kind of humbling me, smacking me to the ground. That's usually how God has to work with me. I always pray that God will humble me gently, but I don't think that works with me. I think he usually has to smack me to the ground, kick me while I'm down, spank me, and just say, stay down there for a second. And that's usually how God has to work with me. And so it was good. And then I got to hang out with that Josh guy, which was nice.
He's not a Christian. He didn't go. He was one of the tour guys.
Yeah, no. So I got to talk with him and like just got to share with him a little bit of my story. And working in a church, I don't have as many interactions with non-Christians as I would like. I mean that's a good thing, I guess. Or at least I might interact with non-Christians, but they claim to be Christians. And so usually most of my conversations are discipleship focused. But I thought it was really cool with this guy that I got to just kind of talk with him and just like almost try to be an example of how to suffer right. I don't know. Even though really the suffering was from my own stupidity, right? It's not like I was being persecuted or something. I just should have gotten off this medication. I should have drank more water. I should have just done a few different things different. But I eventually get to Indian Gardens. We get it together with another group. Some people are doing even worse than I am. And I actually end up passing some people, which is crazy because I'm still struggling. And we finally get to the part where we're going to hit these switchbacks. And man, it was pitch black at this point. Like literally, I had to take out my phone, and I was having to rely on the trekking poles.
Yeah.
And I needed them because like I was still cramping up really bad, and I wanted both trekking poles, but they would only allow me to hold on to one, mainly because they wanted me. Well, they wanted me to have water in my other hand. And so, but the thing is, the water still wasn't doing anything for me.
When it got dark, were y'all at the bottom of the 3 miles?
We were at the 3 mile checkpoint.
Okay.
Like so that there's a little place to like go to use the restroom.
Yeah.
I went into the restroom and the sun, it wasn't pitch black yet. When I came out of the restroom, it was pitch black.
So I was pretty much at the top when it started getting really dark.
So
y'all were at the bottom of that when I reached the top.
And so that's where it got pitch black, and literally you could not see anything in front of you. Like you could not see like my hand, I would not be able to see it. And so I had to take out my phone. It was very freaky.
Yeah.
But it was also really cool because whenever I take a break, I would just like lay back and look at the stars. And if anything, like honestly, it taught me a little bit about the fear of God because it was a terrifying experience. Like I've seen beautiful stars before, but this was like literally like it's pitch black all around you. You just see these amazing stars.
Yeah.
And first off, I got like Psalm 8, like, oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Like that's going through my mind, but also like, oh my gosh, I'm small. God is great. He's big. I'm like, oh man. So it was crazy. But I kept pushing on, and I was probably having to take like 20 minutes. Like I could go for like 20 minutes, which some people were saying they couldn't go that long at the end. But I was determined. Like once I'd made it, like I had 3 miles left. I'd made it 6 miles in the heat. It was getting colder now, and I knew I was like, okay, I can make this. But at the same time, I was getting more dehydrated as I went because the water was not doing anything for me, and I was cramping more and more and more. And I even started interacting with this other group that I came across. And I kept like catching up with them, and then they'd go, and then I'd catch up with them again, and I eventually passed them. And I'm just like going up and further up. And I've got a group with me, but what I would do is I would hike ahead of them because I was going to have to take more breaks. And so I'd hike fast because when I'd hike, I could go fast. And then I would wait for them, and then we'd go again. And at one point, I've got like a mile left. I totally collapsed. Like every single muscle in my body seized up at the exact same time. and there was nothing I could do. Literally, I face planted on the ground. Like, if you see the pictures from afterwards, I'm covered in dirt. It's because of this. I face planted on the ground. My trekking poles went everywhere. My phone went flying. My water bottle almost fell off the side of the canyon. It was bad. And I literally started screaming out in pain. And like, the thing is, my group's just falling behind me. And once again, these people don't know me. I think the entire time they thought I was being overdramatic.
Yeah.
And they're like, this drama queen. He's just like they even literally walked up to me and they're like, hey, you got to get up. We got to like finish.
That's what I'm not laughing about his pain. I'm laughing about their reaction.
Well, yeah.
They just not take it.
Yeah, because like they just walked up to me. I'm literally writhing in pain on the ground. And they're like, hey, man, like, you don't have any time to break. Like, we need to finish this up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I just wanted to be down here. Like, I just drove me down. So I was like, what the heck, guys? And so I eventually did get up, and it was rough. And I finished. And it took me, I think I finished at 10 p.m., something like that. But it had gotten dark like 2 hours earlier. It was bad. And then poor Jonathan, like, I just called him. I was like, hey, man, I need to get, like, first off, the key they gave me to my hotel room, it didn't work. And so I was stuck there. And like, I went and told the guy, I was like, hey, the key you gave me didn't work. He's like, oh, I'll come check on you. And then like, I literally watched him as he went into his bedroom, closed the door, locked it, never came out again. I was like, okay. Once we were out of the canyon, they didn't really care about me.
I think since I had stayed with David, I was like the fourth person out, maybe fifth. So there were a couple of people back, and we had gone to get pizza, and that took forever too. Yeah. And then we got it, and he was back there, and so I took like a whole pizza back to David. And do you want to talk about that?
This was the most humbling experience for me. Poor Jonathan, he's such a good friend. He man is first off, Denise says, woohoo, glad you both of you made it. Yes, we did. I'm glad we did. I am here to tell the story. Yeah. But man,
it was
Jonathan was a good friend, because I was still cramping really badly, right? And I literally could not move my body. And so Jonathan, like, he had to help me. Like I had all these clothes. Like, he had to help me strip out of my clothes. Nothing indecent, but like, he had to help me like take some of the stuff off, because I literally could not move.
Yeah.
Like, I literally had just like, my last reserves had gone into getting out of the canyon. And then like, whenever it came to getting in like the bath to wash off, I couldn't lower myself into the bath. And
so this was another thing. The shower didn't work.
Yes, the shower didn't work. Of course it didn't work.
When I had gotten to the hotel, obviously I wanted to take a shower, and it didn't work. So I had to like make a bath and just lay in it. And like, it's pretty gross.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I don't care. This feels great. Like, I'm done.
And so of course, like a shower I could have dealt with.
Yeah.
Because I just had to stand there. But now I'm having to lower myself down, and like, I knew I could not do that, because like, my arms, I could not do. I could not make this motion.
You couldn't move your legs, or
no, because I'd have to bend my legs too. I couldn't, like, literally, I was like a walking like stick.
Every time you would try, you'd like twitch, and you'd be in pain for like 30 seconds.
He was having to help me like take my socks off and everything. He was such a good friend. And so literally, I was like, hey, Jonathan, can you come stand in here? So I still had underwear on and stuff, right? But I'm standing there, and I'm having to like bend over, scoop up water. And
I think I gave you a cup.
Oh, yes, yes, you gave me a cup.
Small plastic cups they have in the hotel.
He's just standing there as I'm like doing this, and then after all that, I was able to like dry myself off, and then, man, I had to go to bed, right? So I was tired, and we were having to wake up pretty early the next morning. And Denise says, now you're even closer friends. We're like brothers, only closer. It's like David with Jonathan.
I love you.
I loved you more than I've ever loved a woman. And then Hannah says, huge bonding moment. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Huge bonding moment.
So yeah, you got in the bed, and I had to basically tuck you in.
You had to tuck me in, because I went to. So the issue is that, you know how they tuck in like the blankets, you know, the comforters in beds at hotels. Yeah. They tuck them in really tight, and I tried to get in the bed, but like I'd have to, like, in order to get my legs in there, I had to like bend my legs, and so I was like, Jonathan, he had to come up, he had to untuck the blankets for me so I could slide in there. And then he had to tuck it in around me.
Didn't after that I also have to hand you a piece of pizza?
Because now I'm laying there and I'm tucked into the bed, but he had given me pizza and I haven't eaten anything, right? And so the pizza's over there, and I tried to lean up to get the pizza, but then my whole core just like cramped up. I was like, ugh! And so I leaned back, I'm like, Jonathan, I'm sorry, buddy. And so he had to hand me a piece of pizza, and I just had to like, it was a very big bonding moment, and very humbling moment for me. Very embarrassing, but also honestly, at that point, I wasn't even embarrassed. Like right now, I'd be embarrassed, but at that point, I was just glad to be alive,
Yeah.
and so it was yeah, it was crazy. Denise says, "You don't know how much I'm laughing now." Yeah, yeah. Honestly, we were laughing at it in the moment too.
Yeah.
Like once I got out of the canyon and I knew I was gonna be fine.
Well, I felt bad for you, but you just kept like twitching in pain, and I was like trying not to laugh at you.
You did laugh at me. You did laugh. Hannah says, I would have totally thought you were being dramatic too. Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, even as I was doing it, I was like, man, it also doesn't help that I'm naturally a dramatic person, but usually I'm dramatic on purpose. Like, I'm not, there's different, like, some people are dramatic just for, like, they don't even realize they're being dramatic.
Yeah.
I'm theatrical, I guess, right? Like, I'm eccentric and I just like do stuff very dramatic. And so that doesn't help because you might think I'm being dramatic here, but I was not. Like, I was in severe pain, and that's where I think it's good that Jonathan was with me, because he knew me well enough to be like, no, this is severe. Like, this is bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was our Grand Canyon story. It was crazy. It was a wild ride, and I'm still recovering from that. That was, when was that? September, right?
Sure.
Right? I think it was September.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It was September, and
yeah, it was.
The next week, our pastor actually preached about Jonathan. He talked about the importance of friendship. And so, yeah, so there's our very long, drawn-out story about the Grand Canyon. That actually went a lot longer than I expected, but now I guess we can get to Q&A.
Aside funny thing, as I recently got this fit app thing, and it like makes you set a goal and like an end goal that you're working towards. And one of them was like hike the Grand Canyon. And I just thought it was really funny because I just did it without even knowing, and like I've already done that thing.
Got him.
Not to say that it's easy. It's definitely not easy, but I just thought it was funny that I hadn't even thought of it as a big thing I was gonna do. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna have fun with David and see the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah. And also a fun fact, my watch, like I always have this Garmin watch. It's like my running watch. It was at 1% whenever I got out of the canyon. That was also my motivation to finish. Because I was like, I'm not going through this whole thing only for it to not save this. Get through the whole thing and be like, it didn't save. So it saved it. Yeah. Okay, Denise also says, wow, that was a great story. Thanks for sharing. What a memory.
You're welcome.
What a story. Yeah, okay, let's get to Q&A. How about that?
Yeah.
Let's go to Q&A.
We can go back up.
Denise back here had said, do you have any hobbies? This is a question for both of you. We'll throw it to you first. Oh, well, first off, my first hobby is almost dying in the Grand Canyon.
That's your hobby.
That is my hobby.
So he aspires to do that more often.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that more often. But no, what hobbies do you have, Jonathan?
I feel like I don't set aside as much time for hobbies, but I like reading. Well, I used to like reading books. Now I more listen to audiobooks.
Stephanie doesn't like listening to audiobooks. She thinks that doesn't count as reading. I just want to remind her that that's the way that the majority of people read over the course of human history, because most people weren't literate. So.
Boom, roasted.
Boom, roasted.
So I like that. I enjoy that. I listen to, I think I also listen to a lot of podcasts now, but you seeing if she commented.
Oh no, I was just going
okay. So I like to do that. I play the cello. I don't do as much of that anymore either, but every once in a while I'll pull it out and join a group and do stuff with that. I like playing video games. I do that. I definitely don't do that much anymore. Just like with work, and I guess it's a good thing, but getting involved in church, and it's just I haven't made time for a lot of hobbies, but I guess those are a couple of things that I like to do.
Yeah, good stuff. When it comes to my hobbies, this is something that I kind of wanted to aspire to ever since I was in high school. I always wanted to be a Renaissance man, like just a guy who just does a bunch of different stuff. And so I don't like you were kind of saying, I don't have as much free time nowadays because I work at a church. I'm trying to do this YouTube thing now, which is fun. I have family to spend time with, and I got school. I'm a full-time student. And so first off, Stephanie said you can't call it reading if you're not actually reading. Yeah, you can. You are reading. You're just not looking at it. You're reading, Stephanie. So you know what? Literate people, come on.
Oh, and I will say another hobby. I really enjoy watching movies and shows. So when I was younger, I watched a ton of movies, and I know a lot. I don't get the chance now as much, but I do enjoy movies.
Yeah, and so I don't have as much time for the hobbies that I like to do, but some of my favorite things to do are mainly I like a lot of artistic stuff. I like reading. I like writing. I really like writing. That's something I've always wanted to write books, and so I'd like to do that one day. It's just one of those things I'm trying to decide if God wants me to do that or if that's just something I want to do. Reading, writing books, writing songs, playing music. I like playing piano, playing guitar. I like painting. I like drawing. I like.
Dang. I listed like 3 and you're naming like 10.
Well, she said what hobbies? I got a lot of hobbies. I like watching
Shame.
movies. I like watching movies, and then also occasionally I like just doing. It sounds nerdy. I like research. Like I like finding random things to research and just diving in. Like depending on the week, sometimes I might just be studying psychology or forensic science or the lives of the apostles, and then I'll be like, hey, I'll just put that on YouTube. and so I like doing a lot of research stuff. Just I want to be well versed in a lot of things to where maybe this is me. This is my secret to being an introvert who acts extroverted.
Yeah.
I like to be well versed enough in enough different subjects so that if somebody brings something up, I can talk about it. And so that's something that I try to do. But
I think I could also say I enjoy this. This is a hobby. I like getting together with you and other people and talking about the Bible and just like
I guess leading Bible study doesn't really count as a hobby. I mean, technically it's kind of my job, but I would do it if it wasn't part. Like I always led Bible studies before as well. So
I don't know. Hobby's kind of a loose term.
Yeah, I don't know. It might include in there. All right, let's go back up here. I know that Stephanie had asked, "What is your favorite pun?"
So I was thinking about this question because you didn't ask what is your favorite like pun joke. So I was just thinking of my favorite pun to use. So like one thing I like to do a lot is when people use the word intense. I'm like, you were in a tent. So that's probably my favorite pun to use.
Well, I think like I didn't really know what to go with, but now that you mentioned the word intense, I think that probably would be my favorite pun because I use that so often.
Yeah.
But I don't say that. Usually people say that was intense, and I was like, oh, like camping.
Yeah.
And
well,
then
something like
yeah,
that.
and then
they're
like,
effect, yeah.
They're like, what? Like there's so many people they won't get it.
Well, that's my favorite. Like that's my favorite thing to do with puns is the joke just goes over the person's head at first.
Like what?
And then they have to think about it. They're like, oh. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't have any other puns that come right to my mind, so I'm not totally sure. But that intense is a very good pun.
That is a funny.
Yeah,
that's a funny one.
Especially if you're camping. Hannah says, "What kind of books do you like?"
Oh, well, there's another thing I want to address. We can go. To it.
Where's it at? Where's it
It's
at?
not a question, but it's. I'll tell you after.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I am definitely. I think I'm branching out more, and especially like with Christian books and reading more Christian books now. But I was definitely always a fiction person. So like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, all that jazz. That's the kind of things I enjoy. We've read some books like Red Rising series. We've done some videos.
And that was stepping out of my comfort zone when it came to books because I'd never read like fantasy sci-fi stuff before. But then you suggested I really liked it.
That was my first fantasy sci-fi too. Someone just recommended it and I just really liked it. So like Hunger Games, all that kind of stuff I've read, and that's the kind of thing I would always enjoy.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd read Harry Potter, which is I've always.
But it's not. It's not.
Yeah, that's fantasy.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to my book, a lot of my stuff, it really depends on my mood. Like sometimes my favorite thing to do is sit down with a scholarly book and just read it. But I have to be in a certain mood for that. Most often, I think usually I'm safest with stuff if it's like Christian historical fiction, like specifically biblical fiction. I love that stuff. Just because that's the stuff that I would really like to write one day. I do like, there's some books that I would like to write one day that's like Christian living style books, but I don't typically read a lot of those because usually I think that they're more milk than they are meat. And so I like to go deeper with stuff, but I'll read those occasionally. I really like biblical fiction. When it comes to fiction, I love Harry Potter. Like that's my go-to, absolutely love it. I know a lot of Christians don't really like that, but maybe I'll make a video on that one day, just talking about it because
it's an interesting topic.
It's interesting to want to wrestle through.
Yeah.
Other stuff. It literally depends. Like I've got like a stack of books that I'm reading right now, and they're all different genres. Some of them are like philosophy, which is weird because I love philosophy, but I do not like philosophers most often because they don't know when to stop. And so usually there's like a point in a philosophy book. I'll get there. I'm like, I'm satisfied with that answer. We don't have to go further.
Yeah. It's just like too many loops.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we can stop there.
Yeah.
And then other books are like, I'm reading biographies right now. I'm reading a biography about a person who, a former Mormon missionary who converted to Christianity. And so I'm reading that. Really good book. He's really good at writing. I'm reading a book that Dallas Jenkins recommended that's called Bob and Me, or Me, Myself, and Bob. I think it's about the creator of VeggieTales.
Oh,
and it's actually really good as well.
cool.
And so I'm reading a bunch of different books right now. I'm also reading a biography on Jonathan Edwards. I guess I'm reading more biographies right now,
Yeah.
which I didn't used to really like biographies, but I'm increasingly liking them more, especially like Christian biographies. And so that's cool.
Yeah, so the thing I was going to address is I do not have a dog. I just said that to get people to ask me a question.
Yes.
But my girlfriend does have a dog. Shout out to Nala, who is a Great Pyrenees, and she's awesome. And she's lazy sometimes and disobedient, but we still love her. And she's great. So if you wanted to know about my dog,
there you go.
There's the answer.
Kim said, cello. I play the viola and actually have a bachelor's degree in music education. Violin, viola principal. My middle brother played cello in grade school. I believe that Hannah is actually studying music education right now. So Hannah who is currently watching this live stream. There you go. Cool. That's exciting.
That's awesome.
Denise says super nerd, and that's because of my researching skills or researching habits or hobbies. And that's all right. I think we talked about this in one of my earlier live streams. They asked for permission to call me super nerd. And so it's not a mean comment, and she does specify that. I mean that in a nice way. Thank you. I am fine with being a super nerd, even if you mean it
super nerd in a mean way.
Sure, I don't care. Call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner, because I would never be. Cindy says, "I love your stories a lot better than reading about it." Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And then Hannah says, "Elaborate on biblical fiction." Not familiar with that. Yes. Okay. Biblical fiction. So when I say biblical
Chronicles
fiction,
of Narnia, right?
not necessarily.
No.
So that's more Christian fiction, which I do like. Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, right.
Biblical fiction is more fiction set, like kind of like what The Chosen is. The Chosen is biblical fiction, but on TV. So it's basically where you start with the biblical text and you elaborate on it in such a way where you're taking creative liberties, but you're not contradicting the text. So you're kind of fleshing it out to try to make the text come alive to people, right? And so the reason why I like The Chosen so much is because it is basically doing for TV what I've always wanted to do with books. Yeah. I've talked about this multiple times on this channel. I've always really wanted to write a trilogy of books on the Passion of Christ, right? Like the death, like the arrest and the trials, the death and the resurrection. I'd love to do a series on that, to where it's almost styled kind of like 24, like the TV show, where it's like very zoomed in and it's like a moment by moment thing, and it's drawn out. So literally, it's like you have 3 books covering 3 days. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. And so The Chosen's doing that, and that's why I'm drawn to The Chosen. I'm like, wow, like I might never get to these books, but I'm grateful that somebody's doing this well.
Yeah, and biblical fiction's hard. You don't want to have like heresies in it, but
it's very difficult. Yeah, and then you also have to dive into historical studies. So that's why I gravitate towards it, because in order to write biblical fiction, you have to study the Bible a lot, and you have to study the history around it, which helps you understand the Bible more.
And that's why they consult with so many people for the show. That's a hard task.
And I literally have, I think it's on an older phone, I literally wrote down all the books that I would want to write about like biblical fiction stuff. I think I wrote like 90 different things, like because I basically had in my mind basically the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but biblical. Yeah, like the biblical literary universe, to where literally I've got a book I would love to write about Eden, right? Just like the Garden of Eden, what that was like, and it would almost be reflective, like it'd be like Adam reflecting on it after being out of there. I've got a book I'd like to write on Noah, on Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Like I think a book on Joseph. I think I had like 3 books I wanted to write on Moses. I had like 5 books I wanted to write on David. Then Jesus, I had like 12 books or something I wanted to write. Just telling the story in different ways. Like I want to write one story just called like the Gospel According to Matthew. And it's specifically telling that story from that way. And then Mark, Luke, John, and then also retell the story where it's all combined. I've got like all these ideas. But that's what biblical fiction is, Hannah. It's basically just like some other examples you have. Francine Rivers has a bunch of different books that are similar to this. She has like short novellas, which are, I think it's called like Women of the Faith and Sons of Encouragement or something like that. She's written a lot of like short biblical fiction. I can probably recommend some other ones to you. Currently, there's one that's a little bit different. It's called Redeeming Love, which I've read that. It's about the story of Hosea, but it's actually set in the 1800s. And so it's not like a modern retelling of the story, but it's actually taking the story of Hosea, placing it in the 1800s and kind of adapting it loosely. And that's a very interesting read as well. And that's being converted into a movie, which comes out, I believe, in January, which is exciting. But yeah, biblical fiction, I love that. Ted Decker has some books called AD 30 and AD 33. Ted Decker used to be my favorite author. I do not recommend him as highly anymore.
Ted Decker, did he write 3?
Yes, he did.
I've read that.
Yes.
Book.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the movie.
That's a good. There's a movie?
Yeah. What? I'll lend it to you. Yes, there is a movie.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, there you go.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Ted Decker. I used to be a much bigger fan of his, but some of his later stuff has been some kind of weird theology.
3 was
but,
okay. Like,
yeah.
so, like I don't know his books at all, but from the one I've read, it's just a fiction book, but it has some Christian themes, I guess.
Mhm.
So,
yeah. And so let's see. Kim says, I like biblical historical fiction too. Absolutely. It's great if it's done well. I think I like reading it if it's done well or not, because it still allows me to get an idea of stuff. Like, I can kind of take ideas and I can include it. The guy who discipled me always told me that 1 resource is plagiarism, 2 resources is research. And so I read different stuff so I can maybe borrow some of the things that I like. And
you just got to be careful reading that stuff, like that you don't read
Well,
something that's.
And that's the same issue you have with The Chosen, right? A lot of
Yes,
people, the reason
yes.
they're opposed to The Chosen
Correct.
is because there's always that danger of people viewing something in The Chosen and thinking,
Correct.
oh, that's what's in the Bible. And so you always have to encourage people, first and foremost, go read your Bibles first. That's very important when it comes to biblical historical fiction. You want to make sure you know, like, sometimes it can be dangerous there. And so always, like if I overwrote a book, I would always include like an afterword or something, or even a prologue which said like, this is the information that's biblical. Like, just say like this stuff, and this is where I took creative liberties, and I've seen some people do that. I like that they do that.
Right.
Hannah says, like, how would you write that? Through a lot of, primarily by studying the Bible really well, and then also by doing historical research. I mean, the historical research just depends on how accurate you want the book to be. I mean, if you just study the Bible by itself, you can just kind of embellish stuff. But if you really study the historical stuff, that would really help out. Stephanie says, can I borrow that Mormon book? Well, Stephanie, I actually have a bunch of people who have been asking to borrow that, and so I might actually just buy you a copy. And I'll just give it to you so you can have that, because it's really not that expensive, and so I could probably just do that for you, and I'll give it to Jonathan to give to you, or I'll give it to you myself. Merry Christmas. Denise says, I think you'll be dead before you get to them all, or keep writing in heaven. That's kind of the conclusion I've come to. Going back to the whole Renaissance man thing that I've always wanted to do, like, just like, there's a bunch of stuff I want to do. I want to write music. I want to write books. I also think I'm heading in the direction of pastoral ministry, where I'm going to be preaching a lot, and then I'm doing this YouTube thing. I've got a lot of stuff I want to do. And so there's a lot of stuff where I'm right now. I've been praying about this, trying to figure out what's the stuff God actually wants me to do, because it's kind of like David building the temple, right? David wanted to build a temple, but God said, no, that's not your role. It's a good desire, but he actually set that aside for Solomon. I'm currently trying to juggle a bunch of things and figuring out what God wants me to do and what he doesn't want me to do, and trying to figure out what's a greater priority. Writing those books is what I'm passionate about. Like, I would love, like, there's nothing I enjoy more than just sitting down.
You have a lot of fun doing
it. I have a lot of fun doing that. But is that the thing that's going to advance the kingdom of God the most? Not necessarily. And so that's definitely not one of my priorities right now. And so maybe it's one of those things where I can just wait till I get to heaven, talk with the actual people themselves, get the greater details, then I'll just go share the stories with people. Kim says, question, have you heard of Francine Rivers? Yes, I actually have. We mentioned her a second ago as the people. She wrote some novellas, which are really good. And then also she wrote Redeeming Love, which is also a very, very good book that I would highly recommend. Brianne's currently reading it right now, actually. Do you ever heard of Francine Rivers?
No.
Yeah, she got some good stuff. Do y'all have any other questions? If you have any other questions, throw them in there. If not, I do have some questions for you that they're typically my go-to questions to wait to see if anybody else has stuff. First and foremost, what is your favorite Bible verse, Jonathan?
So I thought about this. I kind of got a little bit easy because I watched Hannah and David's talk, so I was prepared. I think one, at least right now, because it probably has changed what I liked, but I really like Romans 6:1, where it talks about,
what shall we say then, or we continue in sin that grace may abound?
Yeah, because I think that's something that is easy to go to as a Christian. Like, if I'm saved and I can't lose my salvation, if that's what you believe, some people believe you can, but if you believe you can't lose your salvation, what is the point of trying? Like, I'm going to be forgiven anyways. And I just think this points to that issue so directly.
Yeah.
And also this whole chapter, because it talks of is it where it talks about, like, or maybe it doesn't directly say, but we've talked about, like, it's like you're nailing in the nail every time you sin more. Like, you're putting that much more on Jesus.
I had to memorize a good portion of Romans 6 for a class one time. It's like, what shall we say then? Are we to continue in sin that grace may abound? By no means. How can we who have died to sin still live in it? That I think I actually skipped a verse there, but
Yeah, that's okay.
but
then-
yeah, no, it is about like
Yeah.
the idea that that's always there's a song by a guy named Ray Boltz. It's called "Feel the Nails." Ray Boltz, he's kind of gone off the deep end a little bit, but he still has some really good songs. And one of the songs is called "Feel the Nails," and in the song it says, "Do you still feel the nails every time I fail?"
Mm.
And that's just like a powerful metaphor, that, like, or not metaphor, just imagery
Yeah.
that has just kind of stuck with me. To where we don't know, right? But just to think about it, like every time I sin, like you can, if you just imagine like Jesus, like kind of like looking down and just like feeling, you're like, oh, like it kind of motivates you. I don't want to do that to him. But
and then also I'll just add, I mean, you only asked for my favorite, but also the last verse of 6 is good too. It's a very, very common one. Yeah, very, very popular one. But it's for the wages of sin is death.
Oh, Romans 6:23.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
I didn't know that was the last verse.
But the free gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ our Lord. Yeah. So a lot of people, you know, if you've been a Christian for a while, you know that verse. But yeah, Romans is good.
It's very good. We've been going through it. I'm literally in a Greek class right now where literally the entire semester is going through Romans, and we're just translating the whole thing. We're actually about to be in Romans chapter 12, and so that's do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Offer yourself as living sacrifice. Great stuff. Kim said, my husband was talking to me. I'm sorry. Didn't know you'd mentioned it already. Well, Kim, step your game up. No, I'm kidding. It's entirely fine.
I want all your attention for all 2 hours of this.
Why are you even paying attention to your husband? Pay attention to us. No, we're kidding, Kim. It's totally fine. I understand. Denise says, was there a moment when you really felt God's love so strongly? That's one of those things. When it comes to feelings, like I feel like I do feel a lot of things, but I think I'm also a very a more logical person. Like not. I think I'm focused more on my like the things I think, and so I'm trying to think like when it comes to feeling.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat. And I don't know if this moment would exactly fall into that category, but I remember when I was dating that girl back in high school, and we broke up, and it wasn't because of me, so which was a big factor because I wasn't willing to get myself out of a situation I knew I shouldn't be in, and I was just so like heartbroken, and I remember just being like praying and talking to God and just crying, and then I just had this realization come over me that like you don't need that. Like I'm all you need. And there was just like a peace I had over her, and I just felt that strongly then. So that's the love of God. That's just a moment I remember thinking like God's enough and it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the love of God, that's been something where I've noticed that a lot of people question that more often than I have. And that could be pride. It could just be, I don't think it is though. I think it could be just me thinking, oh man, well, if God loves somebody, he's got to love me. I don't think that's necessarily it though. I think that in general, that's just not necessarily something I've necessarily struggled with. I think, so it's one of those things where I think it's just been pretty, like there's not a single moment where I'm like, oh, that's when I understood that God loved me. I think that's something that I did kind of just understand from the beginning. And it's so crucial to God's character that I've just never really, I'm not I'm like whenever I don't think I've ever really focused on feeling that in a very strong way because it's just been who he is to me. And so I don't think I've really done that. Like the thing that sticks out to me whenever it comes to like feelings is the fear of God. Like what I was talking about earlier, whenever I was like looking at the stars and like I just felt this like weight pressing down on me. Like it was literally like terror. I was like, oh my gosh, like here I'm like dying in the middle of the Grand Canyon. And to me, this is like the most important moment ever. I'm like, I could die. And then like I'm just looking at the stars and I'm realizing, but I'm just like one person on this tiny little planet in this giant universe that God can span with his fingers. And like it was like just like this weight. And then I remember there was a similar time when I was standing out on a pier. I think I was just like going through something. And I always go out to this pier at my park. I've talked about it in videos before. I went out there and there was just this moment where I don't even know what it was. I was just singing. A lot of times I like singing to God, I just really do. And so I'll just go out, like I was out at the pier in the middle of the night and I was just singing. It would probably be really weird if somebody like had been walking through the park, but I was like singing to God. And then all of a sudden this like just weight came down upon me. And like literally I fell to my knees on the pier and like laid down. Once again, probably a bit dramatic, but the thing is, nobody was around me, and I wasn't like doing it for like people to see. I was laying there, and I was like, God, I'm not worthy of you. I think that's the thing that God impresses upon me a whole lot more. The love is something where I understand how people struggle with that, but I think a lot of times I've seen more people struggling with that if they haven't experienced that love in other places as well.
Mhm.
Whereas for me, I grew up in a family where my parents were always just showering me with love. I was always spoiled rotten, and so I wasn't really ever looking for love that much.
Mhm.
That was something where like I my relationship with God was very similar to the relationship I had with other people. Like I felt loved by him and I wanted to love him well. It was the worth of God. Where like that's constantly I think he's constantly having to humble me and exalt himself higher. That's why one of the first shirts that I've released in my now let's be honest merch store is this one. Yeah. He must increase, I must decrease. This is one of my favorite verses in all of scripture because it's John chapter 3, verse 30, because that's the mentality that God has been constantly hammering into my head.
Mm.
He must increase, I must decrease. He must be greater, I must become lesser. And that's the thing that I've been feeling more like if we're talking about feeling God's presence or feeling something in relation to God,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that he really hammers into me. Like the fear of God, like I need to, it's not just mere reverence or respect. It's a genuine recognition that he is great and big and mighty, and I'm like
Mhm.
small and ultimately unimportant.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I agree with the love thing. I think most of the times when I think about love, it's like realizing that he's the only love that I need to pursue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never really struggled with the idea that God loves me. If
Yeah.
anything, it's been like, oh, I don't love God enough.
No, absolutely. That's
So
that's been my issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kim says Exodus 34, 6-7, the character of Yahweh. I believe that is the passage that says God is slow to anger, abounding in love.
Mm.
I think it's that part. That's whenever he's talking with Moses. And then Hannah says, what are your Thanksgiving plans? Well, Hannah Hopkins, thank you for asking. Tomorrow, I've got to go to one of my friend's bachelor parties. It's a guy who's I'm actually officiating his wedding soon. I'm actually planning on having him on here sometime. He's got a really cool name, but I'm not going to spoil it right now. Going to his bachelor party tomorrow, and then after the bachelor party, I'm going to actually sneak out a little bit early, and I'm actually going to Hannah's house for a Thanksgiving thing that we're having with some church group people. So that's exciting. And then on Tuesday, I'm having the Bible study group over, and we're going to have a Thanksgiving thing at my house here in place of Bible study. But we're still going to do a Bible study. I think we're going to sing some songs, and I think we're going to do like a study of like maybe one of the Psalms, something about gratitude. And I'm going to try to make it to where it's actually focused on God. And then on Thursday, I believe I have family coming over for Thanksgiving. And so this next week is going to be it's going to be a week of Thanksgiving. I'm excited. We're going to praise God. What are your Thanksgiving plans?
Well,
And why does it not involve coming to my house on Tuesday?
Because I have something important, like going to hang out with my girlfriend and her dad.
That's all right.
And give thanks for that.
Okay, well,
because I'm thankful for that.
It's whatever.
So,
what are your Thanksgiving plans, Jonathan?
Yesterday I had Thanksgiving with my job, and that was cool because free food. And then tomorrow I have a Thanksgiving with my Bible study group. We're gonna go hang out and do some worship music and maybe play some volleyball and eat some good food.
Nice.
And then, of course, Thursday I will have it with my family and my sisters come over and just hang out in my parents' house.
Sweet.
So
there you go. Rock on. Kim says you're probably more practical like me, guys. And how about yes, yeah. I think that's just kind of how our minds work. I also have a background in engineering, and so I think maybe that's just kind of the mentality that I've got there.
Brain.
Yeah, and then she also says that's the right verse, the Exodus 34 verse that we quoted there earlier. Okay, now my if people have any more questions, we're just kind of chilling here, right? We don't really have much of a time constraint. Whenever Jonathan and I get together, we just sit here. We also look. I got new chairs, and so I know how last time Hannah and I were complaining about sitting on the piano bench because it gets kind of tiring, and so I went and bought new chairs the next day, and so there we go. If y'all have any more questions, be sure to throw them in there. My next question for you, because I only know how to ask Bible questions. I don't even know if this is one that I asked Hannah, but we'll see. Who's your favorite Bible character?
Ooh, favorite Bible character.
You can't say Jesus. Because I mean, you should say Jesus if it's not, because that'd be pretty messed up if it wasn't.
No. That guy was weird.
Oh my gosh. Oh, allow me to scoot away as you get smote by God. Now, who's your favorite Bible character other than the Savior himself?
Other than Jesus.
So Jonathan.
Wow.
Mine's David. So
No.
okay, it's not Jonathan. Well, you're not as proud as I am, I guess.
No. Probably not. I don't know if I've ever really thought about that too much.
Okay, right now, if I were to just like tell you never mind. I was trying to think of a way to like narrow it down. Like just if I were to just ask you to tell like a life story of one of like just a person whose story in the Bible got you super excited, who would you want to talk about other than Jesus?
I don't know if that helps.
Okay. For me, David would be like the go-to. Like I would love like I will talk about David's life forever.
Yeah.
Like I love talking about David's life. It's so cool.
I think. Well, I mean, I guess I would say.
Sorry, real quick. Hannah says, "Jonathan, you're welcome for my complaints about the backlist seating."
Thank
yes.
you. I mean, I've had to sit in it multiple times, so
yeah, you've only had to sit in it once, Hannah, and you were already complaining. Jonathan's been a trooper over here the whole time. No, kidding. And also, I'm just gonna put it up there again. She once again spelled your name correctly. Mad respect. Okay, sorry. What were you gonna say?
I think Paul.
I knew you were gonna say Paul. I knew it.
It's just like I don't know, like next to Jesus. I think he just feels like one of the greatest Bible characters.
He's cool.
There's a lot about him. He wrote a lot.
He did.
So
he's a cool dude. So we both basically just picked like the people who wrote the most, like David in the Old Testament, Paul in the New Testament. There you go.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Bible story?
Oof, man.
I know. I'm just looking to keep throwing Bible questions at you. We'll get to Bible trivia soon.
Story. I think the story of Isaac and Rebecca.
Oh, Genesis 26, right? Is that what it is?
I'm not sure.
Genesis 23?
Yeah.
I think Genesis 23. Yeah.
Isaac,
that's a long chapter. That's the longest chapter of Genesis.
Pretty crazy story.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, yeah.
It's funny because we call it the story of Isaac and Rebecca, but Isaac's like barely in it.
Yeah.
I know what story you're talking about, though. It's a good story. Y'all should go read it. Read your Old Testament, guys. It's very important. Okay, what other questions do I usually ask? I say usually. I've done this once. Favorite song? Yeah, what's your favorite song?
Well, I think specifically you had said worship song.
Yeah, or Christian. Yeah.
And so I did my answer based on that.
Okay.
But I picked No Longer Slaves.
No Longer Slaves.
Yeah.
To fear. Because I'm a child of God.
Yeah.
All right. Why is that your favorite song?
I don't know. I just like the song.
Okay. That's good.
I like the way songs sound a lot. I think a lot of times you've talked about how you listen to songs and the words are really important, and if it's not, I mean, that is important. You shouldn't sing things that are heretical, but I like songs a lot for how they sound and how melodic they are.
I think half of the music that I listen to, I would not listen to it like on its own. But like the lyrics are the driving force. Like it's just like there's some stuff where I'm like, oh, the music, like it sounds all right.
Yeah.
But the lyrics, those are good. And so it makes me love the music.
I think it depends on what you're listening to the music for and in what context.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
If it's like music I'm just listening to in my car a lot of time. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I should. Maybe it should be like more of a worship thing. But
why can't you be more like me, John?
I don't know.
I'll convert you. I'm kidding.
But also I don't listen to music in my car a lot anymore. I listen to like podcasts.
I usually listen to audiobooks or something like that. So. Okay, cool. What other questions are there to ask? Did you say what your favorite book was already? We talked about books, but
the Bible.
This person asked us. This is a strange question. They said, "Are you gays?" We are not. No, we are heterosexual males who are very good friends. Yes. And I feel like that person was trying to kind of spam us a little bit there.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think that was a genuine question. I think,
but we gave a genuine answer. We are not.
Yeah, we are,
and we believe the Bible says that is a sin.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, we believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that is what is acceptable there. Yeah. There you go. Hannah says, "What are your favorite restaurants?" To move on from that question, what are your favorite restaurants? Oh, I don't know. This is hard. I mean,
I really like Chewy's. Chewy's is pretty good, but then also like it's like one of those things you have to pick your best out of the category. I really like Papacitos. Papacitos is good.
Those are both good.
So I don't know if any of y'all don't live in Texas, But
Most of these people don't live in Texas.
if you don't live in Texas, you're just missing out. Like
Move to Texas. Come on.
Tex-Mex is like one of the greatest things invented food wise. So
yeah, man, I don't even know what my favorite restaurants would be. I mean, I guess Chili's. And the only reason I say that is because I go there so often. Honestly, I kind of get tired of going to Chili's so often, but you can't beat it. And I don't know. Like, you can go there, you can get a bunch of different stuff. That's fine. They got good mango tea. The mango tea by itself is like, yeah, that's good. I don't know if I'd say that's my favorite. It's just the one I go to most often. And so I think
I have a lot of places I go to a lot, but they're not necessarily like my. Sorry, I got distracted with this.
Yeah, I got distracted too.
It's not necessarily my favorite. They're just close and they're convenient. I like them, but my favorite, I don't know if they're my favorite.
Yeah.
So I don't know. When I just think of favorite food, like Tex-Mex comes to mind. So I guess that's what it is. So
yeah. My favorite type of food would either be Italian or Tex-Mex for sure. Yeah. I love me some Italian food. Yeah. And
what's your favorite Italian place?
Well, now are we talking about pizza or pasta? All of my stuff is broken into categories. Like we'll just move on. Well, no, I'm gonna say Chili's tentatively, but I also really like the restaurant BJ's. I really like that place. That's a really they've got a bunch of really good stuff. Pizookies are amazing.
So I didn't even know about this until like less than a year ago, a couple months ago.
Hannah, whenever we went with the group a few days ago, she'd never been to BJ's before, and so I bought like Pizookie so she could try them and stuff like that.
I never heard of them.
It's amazing. They're great. They're fantastic, and I love them. Okay, Hannah also says, "What are your favorite Christmas songs?" Oh man, "Mary Did You Know" is probably my favorite Christmas song, and it annoys me that people only want it sung during Christmas. Like, I love that song. Okay, this is just Hannah knows this. Anybody who knows me knows this. I've got strong opinions on stuff. It drives me nuts how we only talk about the Christmas story during Christmas time. Like that, we'll talk about the resurrection of Jesus and the death. Like, we'll talk about that outside of Easter. But for some reason, whenever it comes, is there a way I can block somebody? Is that like a thing I can do? Block user. Okay, I'm blocking somebody real quick because he's putting inappropriate comments in the thing. Okay. It really annoys me how we only talk about the Christmas story. Like if I were to suggest in the middle of April, hey, let's talk about the nativity story, people would be like, why? They get confused by that. And that's weird to me also about a lot of Christmas music. I mean, if you're talking about a Christmas song that's about Santa, well, I get that because that's a Christmas thing. But the birth of Jesus, first off, we don't even know when it actually happened. But I feel like we should talk about that all the time. It's a very important thing. And so I love Mary Did You Know, probably my favorite song 100% when it comes to Christmas. Also, O Come, O Come, Emmanuel. Mwah. I can jam out to that song on my piano all the time. What are your favorite Christmas songs?
I think one of my favorites, is it Sweet Silver Bells? Is that the name of it? The one that's sung fast.
Silver Bells?
No, not Silver Bells.
I don't know.
It's not called Sweet Silver Bells, but that's what they say in the song.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
That one?
Yes.
Oh gosh. I know what you're talking about. It's somebody commented the one was like dun 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 dun. What, Carol of the Bells.
Carol of the Bells.
I think it's called Carol of the Bells.
Like
That's what it is.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Also because they've had, again, it's kind of just like what it sounds like. There's been a lot of really cool versions of it that I like listening to.
Yeah. Man, we're having more people commenting here that that's weird. Okay. All right. Next question. Who was or is your favorite teacher or professor? I guess this is talking about in regards to seminary. My favorite professor, y'all probably aren't gonna know who he is because my seminary is pretty small. But I go to Dallas Theological Seminary at the Houston campus. My favorite professor is probably my favorite because I've had him the longest. I've had him for a bunch of different classes. Is Will Johnston. He's my Greek professor, and he is just fantastic. Greek is not something I would naturally get super excited about, but he just knows how. I will listen to him talk about Greek for hours, and I have to each week. So, but he's a great guy, really nice dude. I've loved Bill Johnston. I also have another professor. His name is David Klingler. He actually used to be an NFL player. He's also really good. He's probably been the most formative when it comes to my Bible studying, but I don't know if y'all would necessarily know who those people are. So I don't know if that's the question you were asking there, Denise.
Well, I think I didn't answer the question.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, sorry. Who's your favorite professor stuff?
I think just because I wouldn't say that my schooling was bad, but it just wasn't like important to me. It was a way to get to my careers. Like I think for David, you're doing seminary, so it's much more in line. I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyways, my point is that I'm gonna take the easy way out and say it's my pastor, Matt Carter, because I think he's a really great teacher. I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily where you were going with that question, but maybe. Anyways, that's my answer.
Yeah.
He's been really great. I
Yeah.
think his teaching is really solid, and I enjoy.
Yeah, when it comes to like just Bible teachers in general, like beyond like school stuff, I really do like Mike Winger
Yeah.
on YouTube, which that seems like a cliche answer when it comes to like a person on YouTube talking about teachers.
Mm.
But Mike, I've been following him since he had like, I think like less than 100,000 subscribers. Now he's like 350 something. But this guy, I've always appreciated his Bible study techniques, and there's been very few things I've actually disagreed with him on. I mean, me being me, there's always going to be something I disagree about, but I really do like Mike Winger and how he goes about stuff. And so I highly recommend him if you haven't subscribed to him. But if you're subscribed to me, I imagine you probably know who Mike Winger is. Hannah says, Italian's my favorite. Pasta for the win. Absolutely. Denise says, favorite movie. I think I answered this in the last chat. I said Prince of Egypt because I love Prince of Egypt. What's your favorite movie?
Phew. I think Lord of the Rings is probably one of my favorite movies, but
Which one?
I think the Return of the King, just because it's, I don't know, just the way they depict war is also so, I don't know, it's visually like, I don't know, they just do a good job of depicting
Yeah.
battle scenes and stuff, which sounds like a weird thing to like a movie for, but I don't know. It's just they do it well and it's entertaining. Like normally when you watch battle scenes in movies, it's like not very entertaining, but they do a good job of that. And I don't know. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies. I've never been necessarily drawn to that as much. I got close to being drawn to it. You were here whenever I was getting close to it because I was taking this class on Tolkien and Lewis, and I almost did. But all right. Kim says, I'm appreciating Leah more and more. She's overlooked a lot, and we seem to forget the Messiah came through her when it was assumed before the prophecy he would have come through Rachel. Absolutely. No, Leah's a cool character in the book of Genesis. 70 says, but Mary, did you know? It's a great song.
But Mary did know. Is what
but Mary did know. Yes, she did know. But this is a fun thing. It seems like Mary probably had some doubts of her own throughout Jesus' ministry, which is interesting. I think Brandon Robbins did a video on this recently. If y'all know who Brandon Robbins is, he's another guy who talks about The Chosen. But I think he did a video on this, and this is something where it says like where Jesus' mother and his siblings came and they were like wanting to like bring him home because they thought he was kind of crazy, which is interesting to me because like Mary knowing what she knew, you're like, I wonder what that's about. Like, was she just with them? Or like, did she also doubt? Like that's a very interesting thing to think about. Kim says, I sing that one almost every year and I agree about the Christmas Story as well. This guy, I'll tolerate these comments for a little bit, but if they get weirder, we'll see. Oh, Laud, is this a Jesus chat? Yes, it is a Jesus chat. Welcome to it. Hannah answered the question. Carol LaBelle's. Kim says, yes, come Emmanuel. This person says, same dude. But you spend years in seminary. What if you come out, become a priest, and then find it's not the job for you? I think I have a different mentality of jobs than most people do. A lot of times nowadays, we view jobs as something that you desperately desire to do. And it's all about pursuing your dream. I think that jobs are primarily a means of getting by in life, and that's not even how I'm viewing going into ministry. Going into ministry is something I did not want to do. God kind of forced my hand a little bit there, and I'm grateful to be in it now. And I think technically everybody should be in ministry, but I'm actually going into vocational ministry where that is like what I get paid for and stuff like that. What if I come out of seminary and realize it's not for me? Well, then I will do something different.
Yeah,
it's that simple. I've got a business degree. I can do other stuff. But
I think the important thing is that you are a Christian, and that's not ever going to change. And you're still taking something from seminary.
Yeah,
like you learn a lot there.
Yeah, and seminary. I don't think seminary is necessarily. I don't think it's necessary. It is for some people, but really churches should be kind of doing that for people. But yeah, it's if I find out it's not the job for me, well, then I'd be very confused as to why God called me to do it. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think I have a different mentality of jobs than other people typically do. Pastors are not real priests.
Pastor's not.
Yeah, this once again, it seems like this guy's kind of more just trying to spam this a little bit, but I'll tolerate it. I don't mind. I don't mind a little pushback. Pastors not real priests. You're correct. That is a true statement. Pastors and priests, those are different functions. I'm not claiming to be a priest. Technically, Christians are all saints, but pastors, that's a term for a leader of a church. It's a shepherd. And so, yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I'm not planning on offering any sacrifices for people, nor am I planning on functioning as a priest in the Catholic sense of the term. So, yeah, I would agree with that. Kim says, Mike Winger is awesome, and he is so humble, even with controversial stuff. I absolutely agree. That's one thing I've really liked. I like Mike for his humility, and I like how he talks about money, namely in the fact that he doesn't talk about it much. I really appreciate that about him. Like, I've even seen videos, whenever the pandemic first started, he posted a video where he was actually telling people, hey, you might actually need to stop giving money to me. And I was like, that was amazing. Like, I've never heard a minister suggest that. Like, he was like, you might be in a situation right now where you need to stop giving money to me, and don't worry, I'll be fine. And I was like, wow, I had mad respect for that. And I just thought it was really cool that he was actively encouraging people, like, make sure that your money like is going towards the local church, and then other things. Like he said, I'll be fine. I thought that was really cool. Kim says, I think she had some doubts too. Not sure what that's in reference to. Oh, you're talking about Mary. When we were talking about that earlier. Denise says, I knew I wouldn't know the teachers, just what an idea of dynamic or why. Yes, yeah. The one reason why I really like Will Johnston is because he's just a smart dude. Really smart guy. This is my Greek professor. Brilliant guy, but also really funny. And he recommends a lot of books to me. Like, I'd never read Pride and Prejudice. He recommended that to me because after talking with me, he's like, I bet you'd like this. I love Pride and Prejudice. Amazing book. Fantastic. Absolutely love it. And then David Klingler, the reason I liked him is because he's really good at just studying the Bible. Like, a lot of the time, like, he's good at setting aside our cultural biases or like our preconceived notions about texts and just reading the Bible at face value. And he points out that there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that we just typically misunderstand. And typically the way that you can point this out, like he does this a lot, is he says, read this passage and tell me what all these different verses mean. And typically the only verse that seems like it doesn't make sense is the verse, or he'll say the only verse that makes sense to people is the verse that they memorized on its own. And that's because typically that verse is taken out of context. And so whenever you actually read it in the context of the passage, it no longer makes sense. And so I really like that he's really good at just reading the passage at face value and coming to a conclusion about it. And I don't always land where he does, but I really appreciate that. And that's influenced my Bible study a lot, to where now whenever I read the Bible, I try to set aside everything. Like if I'm reading Genesis, I try to set aside Exodus through Revelation. Because sometimes it's easy to read that stuff back into it. Like Genesis 22, you get to the story of Abraham and Isaac. As Christians, we naturally read the story of Jesus into this. But instead, when I get to Genesis 22, I'm trying to wrestle through it. What if I didn't know about Jesus? What am I going to conclude about this story? And then after I've done that, then I can bring the Jesus thing into it. But I'm trying to just read it at face value first. And that's something I picked up a lot from David Klingler. This guy says the Catholic priest is the most coveted position. Well, coveting is wrong.
Well, I also thought about this. We don't necessarily have to go too much into it, but I think that's the whole point, or it's the opposite of the whole point of what we're doing as Christians. Like he was talking about earlier, he must increase and we must decrease. And like by pursuing specifically a career that is coveted, that kind of has the idea that you're idolizing a position.
Yeah. And my goal is not to, there was a time, I think, this is a constant battle, I think, being in ministry. In ministry, you want to do a lot for the kingdom of God. And in doing that, there's this natural temptation to want to be great. Like even on YouTube, I find this temptation constantly to try to do things that would cater to getting more subscribers and like doing a lot like, and there's nothing inherently wrong with getting more subscribers, but I don't want that to be my main motivation, right? Because I want my main goal to be to glorify God and to increase his name and decrease mine, right? I've got this one song I wrote called Undignified, and it's saying, make me undignified that you be glorified. Like that's my mentality about these things. And I don't want to just take, like, I don't want to just be seeking advancement. That I don't want to treat ministry like we treat other jobs. Like in a normal job, you're always seeking the promotion. You're always seeking the next best thing. That's not how I view ministry. My view of ministry is serve God faithfully wherever you're at. And that's what I want to do. And so if I've got 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, cool. If I get less subscribers, that's fine. I'll keep serving God faithfully. If I end up blowing up, okay, well, Jonathan's going to have to make sure I don't get proud, and I'm going to try to
he
keep
will.
serving God faithfully. No, I probably will.
Yeah.
And so I need people to come in and do that.
Yeah.
Same thing in serving in a church. I work at a church where sometimes we start focusing too much on numbers, and that's an issue to me. Our main goal needs to be to serve God faithfully wherever we're at and not be coveting more things, right? I'm not coveting a position. The only thing I'm coveting is being close to God. And that's the only thing I think I can justify actually coveting.
Yeah.
And so I know that this question right here seems like it was guy more trying to spam us a bit, even though Bitcoin, he says Bitcoin is spam. But hopefully that was a somewhat positive response to that. Debbie says, what book is a must read?
The Bible.
I was going to say that too. That is a must read. But if you want to listen to it on audio just to make Stephanie mad. What book's a must read?
I would say, like, if you're a Christian and you're okay, like, you don't have reservations, Harry Potter really is a great book series. But that's just coming from me as a
just from like a fictional perspective.
Yeah, but that's coming from me as like a fictional book reader.
Yeah.
But in terms of like
I'm trying to think one that's like impacted me the most.
Yeah. I just haven't read enough of those to have one that's like, you have to read this one.
See, I've read a bunch of books and I think that's my struggle. Like I'm trying to think like which one has been the most influential on me.
I guess it depends on what you mean by your question. If you're looking for like impactful, like how it changed my life or my viewpoint, I don't have a good one for that.
Yeah. Man, that's gonna bother me. I'm trying to think what books I recommend to people a lot. Recently I recommended Screw Tape Letters to Hannah.
I have read that one.
Because that's a really
interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like the theology in it isn't. I mean, it's fictional, right? The whole premise of Screw Tape Letters. It's by C.S. Lewis. Is
that considered biblical fiction?
Just Christian fiction, probably. Yeah, because it's not like it's biblical fiction specifically telling Bible stories.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Screw Tape Letters would be just Christian fiction where he's established this like fictional hierarchy of demons, and it's an elder demon writing to his nephew, and he's just giving him suggestions and advice on how to tempt people. And I found that a very useful book in my own walk to where I actually write Screw Tape Letters to myself, in the sense of what are the different ways where I've noticed that the devil can like tempt me, and not in the most obvious ways, like very subtle different things. So that's a very useful book to read. Is it a must read? No, I think the only book I'd say is a must read is the Bible. But I do like a lot of classics. Mere Christianity. Barbara is responding to this. She says, Mere Christianity. I do like Mere Christianity. It's been a long time since I read the whole thing all the way through.
It's kind of a hard book to read.
Yeah,
it's very dense.
Yeah, but that's once again C.S. Lewis. So I think general consensus is that just going to C.S. Lewis, you'll have a lot of good reads right there. I'm trying to think outside of that. I like a lot of classics. I like Pilgrim's Progress. That was a fantastic book. I put off reading it for so long because I'd heard mixed reviews of it, and some people thought it was too simple, but I loved it. Once I sat down and read it, it's fantastic. I don't have any of my main books here. I don't know.
Yeah, a bunch of chosen stuff.
Yeah, I got this is all my chosen stuff here. These are like the scholarly books I read. Okay, yeah, I don't know. Debbie, I'll have to get back to you on that. Kim says that's a great approach, David. Never thought about starting from the point of no Jesus.
No,
Jesus first.
I think it's like no comma.
Oh, got it.
Jesus
okay,
first.
Yeah, for sure. Denise says, I think every time you get one of those spam questions, you should read the Bible until they leave. Yeah, that's what I'll start doing. Just start at Genesis 1 and see how far we can go.
In the beginning.
Yeah. Debbie J, Harry Potter's a great series. Any book, any era. Yeah, no, I love Harry Potter is just one of those series. I've read that multiple times. I know a lot of Christians do have reservations about it, and I think those are legitimate reservations that we should consider. But ultimately, I do think that mainly the reservations have to do with witchcraft.
Yeah.
And I think that the witchcraft talked about in Harry Potter is vastly different than the witchcraft talked about in the Bible. And like I said, one day I might make an in-depth video on that.
There's an individual base thing to it too. I think, like, if you know that you can read it without,
it's like a conscience thing.
Mixing the two worlds, like knowing that it's fiction and it has no basis in reality, is important.
Yeah.
So if you can't do that, then I wouldn't read it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Denise says, or you could just read the scariest Bible verse. Just let's see. Well, for a non-Christian, I think the scariest Bible verse would probably be, I don't know. To me, I always go to Revelation 11:5. For those who try to harm them, fire will come from their mouths and consume their enemies. This is how anybody who tries to harm them must die. That's what we could read to the spammers, she's
Mm.
suggesting.
Mm.
Or you could do the Matthew 7 one. But so Barbara said, how about Mere Christianity? And then Kim said, Mere Christianity audio version is easier to understand. Yes, I do enjoy listening to C.S. Lewis on audio. That's actually really fun to me. And some of them, Screw Tape Letters, I actually just got on Audible. It was free on Audible. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And so, yeah. Man, I'm trying to think of other books that are like must reads. That's like an important question. I don't know. Bible's the main one. I'd stick with the Bible. And if we don't have any other questions, I guess we can start wrapping it up because this has been almost 2.5 hours, and we were hungry before this, and I'm very hungry
feeling it.
now.
Yeah.
And so I guess we could probably get out of here unless y'all have any other questions. I'll give you.
Don't let us being hungry stop you. If you
Yeah.
have questions, we are more than willing
Yeah.
to talk to
So
you.
if you have any
and hang
final
out.
questions, we'll give you 30 seconds. We'll just ramble to maybe get some last minute questions in. But if not, we will sign out of here. But we're always happy to answer questions. We're not in a rush or anything.
Yeah.
And so
And if you have
yeah.
cool ideas for videos and stuff you want us to do or live streams, let us know about that too.
Yep. Yeah. Hannah says, where should I get food on my way home? She's been babysitting. Where should you get food? I don't know what area
Chick-fil-A.
you live in. I know where you live at Hannah. I don't know where you're coming from. So I'm going to try to navigate here, but I'm going to think Chick-fil-A is always
get some of God's
good.
chicken, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put them on the screen, but
yeah, Hannah, I'd say just go with Chick-fil-A or Whataburger. I love Whataburger.
Yeah, Whataburger's
I mean, because
good.
I'm assuming you're not wanting to go inside somewhere. If you're wanting some fast food, just go with Chick-fil-A or Whataburger. Kim says, have you read Misreading Scripture Through Western Eyes? I have not read that one. That's actually something that I do need to buy eventually and read that. I have read similar books by Lois Verberg and Anne Spangler. There's like 3 different books. It's Reading the Bible with Rabbi Jesus, Sitting at the Feet of Rabbi Jesus, and Walking in the Dust with Rabbi Jesus. Those are very similar concepts to that book. And then also I've read a book called The Forgotten Jesus by Rob Gallaty, I believe it is. I've read a bunch of different books that are very similar to Misreading Scripture Through Western Eyes, where it's mainly about trying to adapt an Eastern mindset when it comes to that stuff. When it comes to reading the Bible, because
there's a lot of confusion that comes out of that, and
yeah. No, there really is. And sometimes people overstate it, but I think it is a very legitimate concern that you need to consider. And so I try to read a bunch of that stuff because I think it's helpful with Bible study. Currently, I'm actually reading a book called The Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser, which is a book that I've been wanting to read for a few years, and I'm actually reading through it. And it touches on similar stuff, not quite the same, but I haven't read that one yet, Kim. Debbie said, thanks for sharing your testimony. Yes, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. It's great. Hannah says, Deer Park, Pasadena. Okay, so for those of y'all who are watching this isn't going to be that important to you, but right now I am currently going to help Hannah decide where she's going to get dinner on the way back. So she's going from Deer Park to Pasadena. Hey, we can sign off here. We go meet Hannah. we'll get some dinner with her. It's not too far away. We could all go to Jimmy Chonga's. There you go. We'll go get some.
That's right by my house.
That sounds great. Yeah, that's right by your house. Oh man.
So you know, my house is right by it. It's right in my neighborhood, right
next
next to Jimmy Chonga's.
Yeah. Well, Hannah, if you're just wanting to go get some fast food, I'd still recommend Chick-fil-A or Whataburger. But if you're wanting to go to a sit-down place, we'll go meet you at Jimmy Chonga's. That sounds good.
Hungry.
But yeah. All right. Well, I guess we will wrap this up, and Hannah will let me know if we are going to go meet her at Jimmy Chonga's, and we would be happy to do that. I mean, I don't know if Jonathan would be, but
sure.
I'm happy to do that. So, all right,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone, for joining us and listening to me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
David ramble and laugh and
yeah, we had a good time. I had a good time. It's always a pleasure to have Jonathan here with me, and hopefully, we need to get you to do your season 2 videos for The Chosen.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you and Stephanie are doing them, right?
Yeah, it's being worked on.
Yeah, expect those to come out sometime soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to keep a smile on your face. Don't let anybody steal your joy. I'll see you again on Sunday at 7 p.m., and we'll be talking about our 11th disciple, Simon the Zealot. I'm really excited for that one, and then we've only got a few more videos left in this series for Lives of the Apostles. I'm really excited for that, so be sure to tune in Sunday at 7 p.m., and that's going to be a really fun time. Kim says, good night, guys. Denise says, thank both of you. Debbie says, bye. Cindy says, thanks. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate y'all joining with us. It's really been good just getting to know y'all more, and I hope y'all have enjoyed getting to know us more. We'll see you later, and thank you, Jonathan, once again.
Yeah,
all right. See y'all later.
Everyone.
Have a good night.